I have a rather ridiculous story from my For Fun campaign. I'll post the team in a quick plot. Gnome Sorcerer has the spell Grease, which allows him to grease anything within reason. Has wild magic though, so critical fails have horrible results. Half-orc Barbarian Wrestler is a former janitor that still carries his mop and bucket around, probably because he is incontinent. Anthropomorphic Bear Man Bard whose instruments are finger cymbals. Incredibly emotional, so has to roll frequently before events to see how he feels about it. Convinced he is a carny because of previous session. My character, Dwarf Rogue Pirate who has lost everything except his ship, probably drove his crew to mutiny because he has a need to recite horrible poetry to everyone frequently. Quick plot. The other three guys run into me after causing a huge amount of accidental chaos in a nearby village. I agree to take them in if they help me secure an island fortress. Other three guys are running from an elven organization, chasing them down after they set a demon masquerading as a village's mayor on fire. Bump into me, depressed and drunk, stumbling about my ship, yelling of the good old days. Beg me to take them in and sail away. Tell them I'll take them if they help me take this fortress on an island. Get there. Perception check to scope out the island. Barbarian rolls a 15, learns that these are zealots. Gnome rolls a perfect 20, asks if there are crabs on the island that he can collect, and asks OOC how many he could collect in an hour. Bear and I roll shit rolls. Don't notice much, but find a sewer passage. Sneak in through there. Gnome immediately rolls to grease the bear. DM just stares at him. Critically fails the roll. Oh boy, here we go, .rar. Shoot out a fireball that ricochets around the storage room we're in, destroying any chance we had of sneaking around. Roll to see who dodges and who gets hit. The fucking gnome gets hit, but takes the least amount of damage. Bear rolls to see how he feels. Feels good. I check a doorway. No one's coming. Go to the other door to check. Gnome stops me, tells me to roll him in a fucking Rainbow Six style to scope it out. At this point I just want to see what happens, so I agree. He rolls in. Right into the feet of a zealot. Initiative rolls. Barbarian shoots the poor guy in his eye with a crossbow. I charge and slice him open, left armpit to right thigh. Bear roars, rupturing his eardrums. Finally, he reacts, shoots his bow at the gnome, point-blank range. Critical fail. Shoots himself in the foot. Another guy comes running at the barbarian. Gnome greases the guy. He falls. Barbarian bashes him over the head with a folding chair. I finally kill the first guy, rest his poor soul, with a stab into the heart. Take quick work of the second guy. Go through a hallway into the center of the complex. A church. 3 guys, one of which is at least 80 years old. Gnome asks Bear to throw him into the oldest guy. Rolls a perfect 20. DM describes the gnome being shot put straight into the frail old man at what must be a land speed record for gnomes. Killed on contact. Other 2 priests fucking enraged over this, calling the power of the gods so they can do more damage while taking more. Bear feels hungry. Barbarian and I charge the other 2, taking minor damage from their spells. He clotheslines the priest doing a people's elbow after. I chop the other one's hand off. Bear charges at my opponent with sickles. Sickles. Gnome recovers, shoots some good old fire for once at the priest currently being fucked up by the wrestler. We eventually kill them and survey the room. Circular, with a loft area for church bell ringing, and an area for offerings to the blood god. Gnome looks at the rest of us. What are you thinking, you madman? Tells the bear to tie himself to the gnome with their rope. DM demands the bear rolls to see how he feels. Feels good, man. Gnome greases himself up, asks to borrow the sickles. Barbarian and I completely bewildered. I suggest we ring the bells to get the rest of the zealots here. Gnome calls me a genius. Unsure if this is a compliment coming from him, Barbarian and I go up to ring them, and also provide aerial assistance with our crossbows. Gnome finally declares what he is going to do. Says that he will root the bear to the ground in the center of the room while the bear spins him around. Will set himself on fire with matches and stick out the sickle so that he becomes a flaming gnome flail to hit the enemies. OOC, the rest of us are speechless. DM says we need to roll like 6 different checks for this to work. They're all passed, of course. My pirate declares this will be worthy of a poem if we make it. Bear feels good about it too, so he starts spinning. We ring the bells, and the gnome is now on fire. 6 archers and 2 priests come banging in as well, as the blood god in his physical form as well, potentially alerted by the bells, potentially there for keks. DM rolls to see who is able to react to the flaming fucking gnome in time. Only 3 archers don't get hit. Others are incapacitated for a bit. All 3 archers shoot the bear. 2 perfect 20s and a miss. Bear is shot in the head twice for a huge amount of damage. Dies. Is still rooted to the ground, though, and spinning due to forces. Will stop spinning in 1 turn. Barbarian gets into his mop bucket and says he'll ride it down to the ground and continue swinging the gnome around. This means he'll fall flat at least 10 meters, or 30 feet. In a fucking mop bucket. Bunch of check rolls later, he is able to cut the gnome loose and continue spinning him. But his landing was awkward, so he's also rolling around a lot. Now it's my turn. Aim my crossbow at a priest. Miss. The fucking blood god laughs at me. Call out to the others if they can bait the zealots under the loft. I'll make it crash into them. Other enemies are back up, dealing huge amounts of damage to the barbarian. Gnome is still on fire, taking damage as well. They manage to kill the 2 priests, but it is blatantly obvious they'll die in another turn. I decide to bring the church bells down onto the last enemies. Gnome tells barbarian to pull him into the mop bucket water. Can only bring him in close, can't drag him into it. Gnome scrambles to it, but dies before getting in. DM calls him dumb for even thinking of using water for a grease fire. I roll to cut a bell down. The archers are about to kill the barbarian. All up to me. Critical fail. DM just looks at me. And so Mosshead the pirate believed he could take it down quickest by pulling the bell down. God fucking damn it. I pull on the bell, falling with it as it goes crashing down. DM rolls to see if the archers avoid it. They can't. It does 1d 20 damage to us all. All 4 of us are killed. OOC were all silent and dumbfounded. Barbarian only alive with 1 HP. Blood God stands up clapping and laughing. Declares it is the greatest fight he's ever seen and gives the barbarian a deal. He'll resurrect all of us and give us the castle if we sow chaos in his name. Barbarian agrees and explains the deal to us. Bear rolls to see how he feels. Feels good. He has a wide range of emotions, but he kept rolling good. I ask if I can turn the torture chamber into distilleries, and if we can get rid of the tacky symbols. Blood God decrees that 1 torture chamber must be kept in 1 room dedicated to him, otherwise it's ours. And that's how my pirate kingdom was born, with the help of a bear, gnome, janitor, and the god of blood and war. Get a hankering for some roleplay, cruise a couple forums. Something catches my eye. Some kind of weird combination of stuff from Dragon Ball Z, Gurren Lagann, Avatar The Last Airbender, and a few other themes from different shows. Basically, Animu the game. Honestly, kind of a cool setting after reading through it. Superpowered dudes wander around doing their own thing, having adventures and trying to stop evil shadows from consuming the world. Looks cool. Sign up. Start making a character. Character has attributes, strength, speed, the usual shit. Traits and powers chosen from a big list, and spirit, which you use for doing cool shit. Had a certain number of points to spend on attributes, max strength and put some into speed, endurance, and a couple in charm. Wanted to try a brawler type guy. I'll get to why that idea was bad later on. Look at spirit rules before picking powers because I want to do as much cool shit as possible. Spend spirit to activate powers. Different powers modified how spirits worked and gave it an elemental alignment, which modified damage and other crap. Basically, let you spend 1 point of spirit to get 5 points of fire damage. Cool. There was also raw spirit, which had no modifier, but also no elemental alignment and couldn't be resisted. Less bang for your buck, but could be useful. Raw spirit had a cap depending on your attributes. At lower levels it was pretty low, like 10 or 20 if you got lucky. With my stat layout, I had 5. Awesome. Look through the powers list to see if I can unscrew my character. Browse through list. Pretty basic stuff. Throw fire, control shadows, frost breath, whatever. Also mundane powers like sword fighting and free running. Choose unarmed combat right off the bat, cause I want to punch people. Still a bad idea. Kept looking, see something interesting tucked away in the list. Overflowing Spirit. Pretty expensive point-wise for a simple power, but my eyes lit up at what it did. Removes the spirit cap. Plus some other crap which I glanced over at the time, but more on that in a bit. Oh, fuck. Now that's pretty abusable. Figure everyone takes it, so I take it too. Take Battlecry for a spirit buff and to blow the last of my power points. Character pretty much done. Name him Edgardo because it sounded cool at the time. Ready to go, Edgardo the Brawler sets out on his quest to do whatever. Start in the central town where everyone else hangs out. Introduce myself. Describe him as a hot-blooded, hot-tempered, courageous, and always itching for adventure. Honestly, pretty flat character, but whatever. I thought he was okay. Promptly get laughed at for making such a naive and lowbrow character. Apparently everyone has made brooding anti-heroes who sit in the dark corners and don't really do much of anything. I swear the tavern had to be some kind of 8th dimensional shape because everyone was in their own fucking corner away from everyone else. But the last straw came from some asshole drinking his wine at the bar. Edgardo is such a stupid name anyways. Motherfucker, Edgardo did not walk in here to be mocked by a bunch of trenchcoat-wearing pricks that are trying to be edgier than a goddamn razor blade factory. Take a swing, and quickly discover that I am well and truly butt-fucked. Apparently, unarmed combat was hosed from the start, as fists don't do shit against even the lightest armor, and don't get damage multipliers. Fantastic. Blow a spirit point just to get past his armor. Do single-digit damage. Fucker laughs and stands up. Care to try again, you pathetic wretch? Use Battlecry. Can't think of anything, so go with Bonsai! And use the rest of my spirit points. Nothing. He dodges. Draws his sword. Gives me an eye-rolling disappear before he blasts me out of the tavern with sword, lightning, whatever the fuck. He spends 1 spirit for that. And I nearly get 1 shot, even with a good amount of endurance. Fucking what? So, while I'm bleeding out on the side of the road, I take the time to browse some other characters. First up is Sword Lightning Asshole, basically the same level as me, but better in every way. Powers are better, higher spirit, good start. More my fault really, because I fucked up character creation. Browse more characters. Notice something. Not one has overflowing spirit. Not one. Ask why. Turns out that if you make a decent character, you have more than enough spirit to do whatever the fuck you want. Even the highest level characters only have about 100 cap, and it's rare to get halfway down in a normal fight. And then there was the part I skipped over. Overflowing spirit prevented you from taking elemental powers. You were basically stuck using raw spirit, which was shit. Elemental spirit had damage modifiers so high that even if you resisted it, you still took a good amount of damage. Nito Burrito. Edgardo was basically useless against everything. Since I was screwed, I PM'd Mod to see if I could make a new character that wasn't crippled beyond belief.
Lol, deal with it, you made it, you play it.
So, recap. Everyone is pretentious fuckwad, the mods don't give a shit, and Edgardo is beyond worthless. Great start. Pick myself out of the dirt and limp away to get myself healed. Nope, I was broke, so I couldn't get shit. I'd have to sit my ass down and wait to heal naturally, which could take days. Fuck that, I'm already tired of this shit, so I make an attempt to steal a potion. Lol, no. Enter Militant Zero. Yes, that was his name. I cringed too. Omnipotent character number 4782. Could do anything he wanted because he had been with the RP the longest. I also suspect that he sucked the admin's dick. Or whatever. Teleport to me instantly. I can't do shit because I'm basically dead on my feet. Lifts me into the air with magic psychic bullshit, so I can't even run. He starts going on a long speech about crime and how evildoers should be punished and how he's the best and blah 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 blah. And then he gives me an ultimatum.
Beg me for mercy, and I might just let you stay in this town. Otherwise, I'll throw you to the shadows.
Fuck no. Edgardo does not beg. Struggle, swear, spit, and basically do everything I can to do anything to get out of this. Nope. I get thrown through the roof of the building I was in and soar all the way out into the wilderness. Well, I'm dead. Fortunately, newbies get one free revive. I cash mine. Zero gets super fucking butt mad about it. Says I'm dead for good because he says so, and wah. Call him out on his bullshit, immediately get shot down by everyone in the community. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy for trying to steal and picking a fight. Yeah, okay. Mods calm everyone down, say I'm alive and with 1 health in the wilderness. Last bit of charity I'm getting. I won't even survive the night. But then, I met a guy named Squid. Beast folk were a thing, so people could have cat girls and wolfmen and shit like that. A guy named Squid was, well, part squid. Literally just a big muscly dude with a squid for a head. And yes, his full name was a guy called Squid, and he insisted that everyone called him that. I mean, pretty cool dude, ran into the same troubles I did, was a punchy guy like myself, but he punched people with fire. Helped me out, shared a potion, was generally a bro. We both decided to stick together and train out there, because we both needed to get a lot stronger before we headed back into town. It wasn't going to be nearly that easy. Got to nighttime. Me and Squid set up camp in a cave. Suddenly, shadows, because mod bullshit and Zero whined enough that I was still alive. I was still pretty fucked up, but I could hold my own and Squid was in perfect shape. Still, we barely survived, mainly because Squid's fire damage was beastly. We both agreed that we wouldn't survive another fight like that, so we hightailed it out of there and back to town. Yeah, no. Invisible force shield prevented us from going back in. I wasn't surprised. Look on the map. Found a nearby town to hole up. It'll take a couple of days to get there, though, and we were both out of supplies. Neither of us saw any other way, so we got to walking. Edgardo and a guy called Squid. Just 2 guys on the road to adventure. Or the road to not dying horribly and somehow getting petty revenge, but whatever. Normally, when people traveled, there was random events that would be either good or bad for you. It was up to how much the mods liked you, really. The mods didn't like Squid or Edgardo. If we got something good, they'd find some way to take it away from us. We saved a lady from bandits on the first day. And by that, I mean we kicked the bandits in the nuts, grabbed the lady, and ran like hell. That night, she prison shanked Squid, took what little shit we had gathered, and bailed. When I tried to chase her, she poofed. Gone. Neato burrito. I really don't know why we kept going after that. It was obvious we were unwanted, so we really should have just quit. I think we were both waiting on the other to give in first. I didn't want to admit defeat, and I knew Squid didn't want to either. We just had to press on, no matter what. Even when we met Sword Lightning Guy again. It had been a few days on the road, and we kept getting shit on. Wolves, rain, another shadow attack. Still, I don't know how we lived, but we scraped by, either by running the fuck away, or through sheer luck in winning a fight. One more day of traveling, and we'd be at the village. We were so close that we could taste it. But then, the dick from the tavern showed up, blocking the road. Never mind how he got ahead of us, but he was, and we had to take it.
Well, 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 if it isn't the wretch from the tavern, and he picked himself up a side dish too.
Squid tells him to take a hike and let us through.
But this is a toll road. You have to pay me to pass. Let's say 1,000 gold.
Fucking what? Tell him that he's full of shit and that nobody has that much money.
No, what a shame. Then you'll have to pay with your lives.
He pulls his sword and blasts Squid, who somehow powers through it. This gives me a chance to get up close and... well, we've established I can do fuck all against this guy. I'm banged up pretty good, and fists don't do shit. The only thing I have left is spirit. A metric ass ton of spirit. See, as we were traveling, I was hoarding points. Well, not intentionally. I gained some every day like everyone else. And every time Squid and I killed something, we got a little bit more. Squid was spending his spirit left and right. I wasn't. And since I had overflowing spirit, I had a lot more points than I had any right to have at my level. Even if raw spirit was crap, a lot of crap could still wreck someone's day. Ejardo had a chance. A slim chance, but it was better than nothing. Banzai! Battle cry. Use all that spirit. Crouch for an uppercut. Sword guy doesn't give a shit, actually laughs in my face and doesn't even make an attempt to dodge.
You're kidding, right? We've been through this and you can't hurt me.
You're the only one laughing, asshole. My fist connects with his chin, and so does all of that raw spirit. Didn't do nearly as much damage as elemental attack would, but it was still enough to knock him on his ass, which gave Squid the perfect setup. He jumped on Sword Guy, and blew all of his spirit too. Where once there had been a face, there was now a smoking crater. The Sword Guy died, and 2 underdogs to boot. Predictably, he pitched a bitch fit, and so did the rest of the players. We were murderers and outlaws and generally horrible people for deciding not to deal with this bullshit anymore. Me and Squid didn't give a single fuck. We had earned our first actual victory. Sure, we were nearly dead, defenseless, and still had to make it to the village, but we won. Things were looking up, at least for a little while. We still had to worry about Zero and his crap. Zero was some kind of king or tyrant overlord or whatever, and his village was still in his little authority zone. So when we finally arrived in the village, guess what special surprise is waiting for us? If you guessed invisible, immune to everything, force field, congratulations, give yourself a gold star. And for good measure, he teleports in and taunts us, saying he'll follow us until we're broken and mad and shut the fuck up already. He crackles and ports away. Squid falls to his knees. He's had enough. We came all this way, all for nothing. Sure, we beat someone, but he'd be rezzed and in perfect health the next day. So what do we do now? Squid was ready to quit. Ejardo wouldn't have it. We train, Squid. We train. We hiked up a nice grassy hill near the village, and then proceeded to beat the ever-loving crap out of each other. Whenever you got into a fight, you got a couple of points towards leveling, win or loss. The only problem is that most characters couldn't spar against one another, as they'd kill each other pretty quickly. Elemental attacks and weapons combined had huge damage multipliers, so sparring would quickly end with people dead. We didn't have any weapons. An unarmed combat would take days of wailing on someone to actually kill them. The only reason Squid was alright was because of his firepower. So, as long as we didn't use any spirit, we could beat each other silly, pass out, wait a while to heal, and do it all over again. It was stupid, it was cheesy, and it pissed everyone off. But it fucking worked. Some said that the shadows would attack us, but we were just close enough to the village that they couldn't. I'm still not sure why Zero or even the mods let us get away with this shit. I guess they didn't see it as anything to actually be worried about. Eventually we leveled up though. It was a slow process, and there were better ways of leveling. But this was all we had. Plus, it gave me another fuck ton of spirit points. Ejardo pumped up strength first, evenly distributed the rest. Got a power to double the rate at which he gained spirit per day. I had a plan. Squid just buffed his Fire Fist. It was a good way to go. Now we just had to find somewhere to rest up properly. Somewhere to regroup. We couldn't just stay and wail on each other for another level. We'd gotten lucky the first time, but now there was talks of a few other players jumping us. We had to move. Neither of us knew where the hell we were going to go or what we were going to do. We just hit the road and tried to get as far away from Zero and everyone else as we could. The mods fucked with us for the first few days, but eventually they just got bored and left us alone. Sometimes they'd throw a few shadows our way, but it was nothing we couldn't handle. Random events just stopped happening for us. I think it was mainly due to us not really bugging anyone anymore. We were doing our own thing, so everyone just sort of forgot about us. Except Zero. He was still mighty pissy about me living this long. I had no idea what his deal was. Maybe it was just a challenge of his authority that I represented. Or maybe he was just a colossal prick. Either way, once we left his authority zone, or whatever, he sent one of his lackeys after us. Quick look at his character sheet. I knew just how much Zero hated us. His name was Golden Harl, and the dude was basically invincible. Magic armor let him resist all elements massively. Plus, it was super light, so he could fly around and do his ninja flippy shit. He could heal himself completely by spending a couple of spirit, and his spirit refreshed basically whenever he wanted it to. It was official. The mods just didn't give a shit. Oh, and we were screwed too. All we could do was keep going forward and hope he didn't catch up to us. He did, and damn quick too. He met us while we were traveling along a gorge, and promptly tried to knock me over the side. Golden Harl wasn't fucking around, no words, only pain. He meant business. I barely managed to dodge him, which was, of course, met with public outcry. But I was dangerously close to the edge. Squid tried a fire punch with a couple of spirit behind it. No sell. And Golden Harl got a free counterattack because fuck you, he's Golden Harl. Squid is knocked down, but it gave me an opening. I grabbed Golden Harl by his waist and gave him a suplex. My high strength let me get in a few points of damage, and it put me in a better position. It didn't really matter though, as he was back up and fully healed a second later. I helped Squid up, but we were pretty much already dead. Golden Harl finally spoke up.
Any last words?
Bonsai! The fucker was wide open, and his back was at the edge of the cliff too. A quick PM to Squid was all it took, and the quick plan went off like clockwork. Squid ran diversion, going high for a fire punch to the face. Golden Harl didn't bother to dodge, he was invincible after all. He forgot one thing. Raw spirit can't be resisted. Edgardo went in for the gut punch, with all that built-up spirit from training and the road. It wasn't enough to kill Golden Harl, not by a long shot, but it was enough to knock him backwards, and that last step was a doozy. Golden Harl fell into the canyon, and we only stayed long enough to hear the dull thud of him hitting the ground. I could practically hear Zero grinding his teeth into powder as he tattled to the mods, who really didn't care enough to do anything. Surprisingly, I barely heard anything from Golden Harl's player. Just a simple PM saying, "Well played." I almost felt sorry that he had to meet his end like that. After that, we were pretty much free to keep going until we hit another village. Zero couldn't get to us here, so no shield and no bullshit. We could finally rest. Well, maybe, we were still broke, and there was a small army of players after us. Apparently, Golden Harl was a pretty popular character, and by killing him, we were now at the top of everyone's hit list. Fantastic. Squid slept in an alley, and I kept watch, trying to get a plan together. We basically had come up to a sort of unspoken agreement. Squid was tired of Zero's shit, and so was I. We wanted him dead and broken. The problem was that two low-level characters can do fuck all against the guy. His level was literally listed as an infinity sign. When Squid took watch, I read over the fluff of the setting, looking for something, anything that could help us. I found it in the city of Haven. Haven was the second biggest city in the setting, just barely smaller than Zero's place. It was kind of a big deal though. See, it was home to the Spirit Well. It was a font of power that everyone flocked to. As long as you were in Haven, your spirit points recharged instantly, up to your cap. I didn't have a cap. I still wonder how anybody in their right mind missed this little detail of overflowing spirit. It was just set up so perfectly. Maybe I was being a massive that guy for exploiting this thing like I did. I don't really care. Everyone but a few people were complete assholes, and I wanted their little club destroyed. It was petty, it was stupid, and it was probably hurtful to a few people. But Edgardo had a mission, and a guy called Squid was going to help him see it through. If they ever got to Haven in one piece. I swear, we were the only two people following the traveling rules because the horde of players chasing us caught up to us a lot quicker than they should have. We had half a day to rest up before we had to hit the road again. I was useless without a buildup of spirit, and Squid could only fend off so many people before he'd die. The only route to Haven was a long, winding road through the mountains, and we'd be ambushed if we tried to set up camp anywhere. It'd take too long, and time wasn't on their side. So, Edgardo had a crazy idea. What if they climbed over the mountains? It was basically suicide, as the random events were especially harsh in that terrain. No one would follow us. After all, something might happen to their super special characters. Squid was on board, and he brought up an interesting point. The mods were ignoring us. Everyone was so pissed off at us. But in the grand scheme of things, we hadn't really done anything major. We killed a grand total of 2 characters through sheer luck and broken mechanics. And I had basically given their idol Zero a giant middle finger for simply surviving as long as I had. And Zero could only suck so much cock. So we started climbing, making rolls and getting through by the skin of our teeth. Every once in a while a mod would glance over and make shit hard for us, but overall, we didn't have that much trouble. That's because trouble was waiting for us on the other side of the mountain. From our perch, we got a view of the players coming for us. There's no way we could take them all. And if we waited, they'd just get to Haven and wait for us there. And then there was the guy, waiting just underneath us. Golden Harl, back from the dead. They must have fished him out of the canyon and had him rest. Or maybe he survived the fall and healed. Who knows? We know he saw us, but he didn't move. He could have just jumped up at any time he wanted and murdered us right there and then. But he didn't. After a while, Squid got tired of waiting. He climbed down, and Edgardo followed, to have his back in case anything went south. Squid asked him what he wanted. Golden Harl just wanted to talk. Turns out that he had more to his story than we knew about. Golden Harl was in his RP just as long as Zero was, and frankly he was tired of Zero's shit. Golden Harl earned everything he had, and didn't need to resort to whining to the mods to get what he wanted. When we asked why he tried to kill us, he said that it was either follow Zero's orders or get his shit shoved in. In a 1-on-1 fight, Golden Harl just couldn't compete, mainly because Zero could do whatever the fuck he wanted and no one would bat an eye. After we killed him, he was basically done. He was satisfied with the ending he got. But instead, Zero revived him and sent him to kill us again. Golden Harl had other plans though. Squid was suspicious, but I believed him. I'm still not sure why. Maybe I was desperate. But I told him our plan. Technically, I told everyone our plan, as it was on the public threads. I'm an idiot, sue me. Golden Harl said he could get us to Haven. The story was over, and he ceased giving a single fuck about what anyone else would say about this. He only had one condition. We had to promise we'd kill Zero, and end this once and for all. Edgardo and Squid agreed. This was our only shot, and we weren't about to throw it away. A massive shitstorm erupted from the player base as we joined up with Golden Harl. Zero called him a traitor to everything the RP stood for. And everyone made such a fuss that the mods nearly banned the guy. Golden Harl had a bit of sway with the mods too, and he got lucky as shit when they took his side, when he pointed out that he had done nothing wrong. With the mods appeased, that just left the army of players gunning for us. The second we hit the road, they were on us. There was no fucking around anymore, and the travel rules were basically out of the picture. A horde of superpowered loners and misfits charged towards us, flinging fire and lightning and all manner of weapons, all of them driven by their singular hatred of Edgardo, a guy called Squid, and the traitor, Golden Harl. Golden Harl weathered the tide, taking kunai and fireballs and shadow spears without so much as flinching. Because fuck you, he's Golden Harl. Me and Squid ran behind Golden Harl as he cleared a path, letting us to the other side of the army. As we kept going down the path, Golden Harl stayed behind, covering our escape. To this day, I don't know if he survived or not. I'll never forget his bravery. Since everyone else was doing it, we ignored the travel rules ourselves, arriving in Haven near instantly. Zero bitched. Nobody hurt him. There's one last obstacle, though. One last player. Kane. The Shadowmancer. This fucking guy. He had a power letting him control Shadow. His interpretation of what this actually did was very, very loose. And since he was in Haven, he could abuse this like nobody's business. As soon as we set foot in the city, Squid and me instantly get paralyzed. We called him on his bullshit. I'm not sure why.
I control the darkness in people's hearts. The darkness in everyone's soul. You are mine.
Eat a bag of dicks. Squid tells him that's not how it works. Kane isn't listening because it's his powers and he says that's how it works and wah. Meanwhile, I just sit back and ask myself a question. Why can't I hold all this spirit? Spend infinite spirit, break Kane's hold, brace for whining.
How? You can't resist me. The darkness is in everyone's heart.
Okay, it's Edgardo's turn to be cheesy. You're wrong. My soul is a shining beacon, filled with a light and a burning hope that no shadow can touch. It is a pinpoint of justice, a shining star that will deliver freedom to the universe. I will root out the darkness, the evil of this land. No shadow will be spared, my light. Kane just can't comprehend how he's about to lose. He tries the shadow paralysis thing again. No cell, infinite spirit. Who the hell do you think you're dealing with? Banzai! Swift uppercut, battle cry, ultimate raw spirit punch. Kane gets punched into the sun. Cue shit being lost by absolutely everyone again. But Squid is okay. We rest up and figure out our next move. My ultra powers only work if I'm in Haven. That doesn't do us a lot of good. But Squid finds out that Haven's unlimited spirit effect lingers for a day after we leave. Zero is weeks away in his city. More players are on their way to Haven. And even though I have infinite spirit, I can only use it to punch people. I'll get killed eventually. We're basically stuck. Until I notice that we've leveled up. I don't really give a fuck about my stats at this point, but there's a power that really catches my eye. Teleportation. I have exactly enough points to purchase it. Normally I wouldn't have enough spirit to use it, but Haven, so it works. Squid upgraded his fire punch. It was a good way to go. I tell Squid that he can stay behind. This is going to be dangerous, and we might not come back. He tells me he's with me to the end, and he intends to see this thing through, and that he's got my back no matter what. In the middle of the town square, Edgardo and a guy called Squid share a sweaty, shirtless, muscly, manly hug for all the world to see. It was super homo. Actually, we just had to be touching so I could teleport us both. But shut up. We arrived outside the city, and the shield was still out. Zero mocked us, saying that he was invincible behind his wall, and that we couldn't do anything.
The shield can withstand 1,000 times the force of anything you could possibly throw at it.
People just keep forgetting. Raw spirit can't be resisted by anything. I'll just have to hit it 1,001 times harder. Banzai! I still flinch whenever I remember typing that. So damn cheesy. One more battle cry. Blow infinite spirit. And nothing. Not a damn thing. Zero refused to post an actual RP after that. I think he had a stroke or something. He posted plenty in the discussion thread. Everyone did. The entire community spammed the forums, declaring that I should be banned, flayed, and hung for my shenanigans. The next day, when I tried to log in, I found that the forum had been shut down due to popular opinion. I never saw Squid after that. We had never exchanged emails or anything. I like to think that Ejardo is still frozen in that moment in time, his fist crashing through the shield and connecting with Zero's big, stupid face. And Ejardo was smiling. He won. He and Squid and Golden Harl. They won. Get a hankering for some roleplay, cruise a couple forums. Something catches my eye. Some kind of weird combination of stuff from Dragon Ball Z, Gurren Lagann, Avatar: The Last Airbender, and a few other themes from different shows. Basically, Animu the game. Honestly, kind of a cool setting after reading through it. Superpowered dudes wander around doing their own thing, having adventures and trying to stop evil shadows from consuming the world. Looks cool. Sign up. Start making a character. Character has attributes, strength, speed, the usual shit. Traits and powers chosen from a big list, and spirit, which you use for doing cool shit. Had a certain number of points to spend on attributes, max strength and put some into speed, endurance, and a couple in charm. Wanted to try a brawler type guy. I'll get to why that idea was bad later on. Look at spirit rules before picking powers because I want to do as much cool shit as possible. Spend spirit to activate powers. Different powers modified how spirits worked and gave it an elemental alignment, which modified damage and other crap. Basically, let you spend 1 point of spirit to get 5 points of fire damage. Cool. There was also raw spirit, which had no modifier, but also no elemental alignment and couldn't be resisted. Less bang for your buck, but could be useful. Raw spirit had a cap depending on your attributes. At lower levels it was pretty low, like 10 or 20 if you got lucky. With my stat layout, I had 5. Awesome. Look through the powers list to see if I can unscrew my character. Browse through list. Pretty basic stuff. Throw fire, control shadows, frost breath, whatever. Also mundane powers like sword fighting and free running. Choose unarmed combat right off the bat, cause I want to punch people. Still a bad idea. Kept looking, see something interesting tucked away in the list. Overflowing spirit. Pretty expensive point-wise for a simple power, but my eyes lit up at what it did. Removes the spirit cap. Plus some other crap which I glanced over at the time, but more on that in a bit. Oh, fuck. Now that's pretty abusable. Figure everyone takes it, so I take it too. Take Battlecry for a spirit buff and to blow the last of my power points. Character pretty much done. Name him Ejardo because it sounded cool at the time. Ready to go, Ejardo the Brawler sets out on his quest to do whatever. Start in the central town where everyone else hangs out. Introduce myself. Describe him as a hot-blooded, hot-tempered, courageous, and always itching for adventure. Honestly, pretty flat character, but whatever. I thought he was okay. Promptly get laughed at for making such a naive and lowbrow character. Apparently, everyone has made brooding anti-heroes who sit in the dark corners and don't really do much of anything. I swear the tavern had to be some kind of 8th dimensional shape because everyone was in their own fucking corner away from everyone else. But the last straw came from some asshole drinking his wine at the bar.
Ejardo is such a stupid name anyways.
Motherfucker, Ejardo did not walk in here to be mocked by a bunch of trenchcoat-wearing pricks that are trying to be edgier than a goddamn razor blade factory. Take a swing, and quickly discover that I am well and truly butt-fucked. Apparently, unarmed combat was hosed from the start, as fists don't do shit against even the lightest armor, and don't get damage multipliers. Fantastic. Blow a spirit point just to get past his armor. Do single-digit damage. Fucker laughs and stands up.
Care to try again, you pathetic wretch?
Use battle cry. Can't think of anything, so go with Banzai! And use the rest of my spirit points. Nothing. He dodges. Draws his sword. Gives me an eye-rolling
Disappear.
before he blasts me out of the tavern with sword, lightning, whatever the fuck. He spends 1 spirit for that, and I nearly get 1 shot, even with a good amount of endurance. Fucking what? So, while I'm bleeding out on the side of the road, I take the time to browse some other characters. First up is Sword Lightning Asshole, basically the same level as me, but better in every way. Powers are better, higher spirit, good start. More my fault really, because I fucked up character creation. Browse more characters. Notice something. Not one has overflowing spirit. Not one. Ask why. Turns out that if you make a decent character, you have more than enough spirit to do whatever the fuck you want. Even the highest level characters only have about 100 cap, and it's rare to get halfway down in a normal fight. And then there was the part I skipped over. Overflowing spirit prevented you from taking elemental powers. You were basically stuck using raw spirit, which was shit. Elemental spirit had damage modifiers so high that even if you resisted it, you still took a good amount of damage. Nito Burrito. Ejardo was basically useless against everything. Since I was screwed, I PM'd Mod to see if I could make a new character that wasn't crippled beyond belief.
Lol, deal with it. You made it, you play it.
So, recap. Everyone is pretentious fuckwad, the mods don't give a shit, and Ejardo is beyond worthless. Great start. Pick myself out of the dirt and limp away to get myself healed. Nope, I was broke, so I couldn't get shit. I'd have to sit my ass down and wait to heal naturally, which could take days. Fuck that, I'm already tired of this shit. So I make an attempt to steal a potion. Lol, no. Enter Militant Zero. Yes, that was his name. I cringe too. Omnipotent character number 4782. Could do anything he wanted because he had been with the RP the longest. I also suspect that he sucked the admin's dick. Or whatever. Teleport to me instantly. I can't do shit because I'm basically dead on my feet. Lifts me into the air with magic psychic bullshit, so I can't even run. He starts going on a long speech about crime and how evildoers should be punished and how he's the best and blah 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 blah. Then he gives me an ultimatum.
Beg me for mercy, and I might just let you stay in this town. Otherwise, I'll throw you to the shadows.
Fuck no. Ejardo does not beg. Struggle, swear, spit, and basically do everything I can to do anything to get out of this. Nope. I get thrown through the roof of the building I was in and soar all the way out into the wilderness. Well, I'm dead. Fortunately, newbies get 1 free revive. I cash mine. Zero gets super fucking butt mad about it. Says I'm dead for good because he says so, and wah. Call him out on his bullshit, immediately get shot down by everyone in the community. Suddenly, I'm the bad guy for trying to steal and picking a fight. Yeah, okay. Mods calm everyone down, say I'm alive and with 1 health in the wilderness. Last bit of charity I'm getting. I won't even survive the night. But then, I met a guy named Squid. Beast folk were a thing, so people could have cat girls and wolfmen and shit like that. A guy named Squid was, well, part squid. Literally just a big muscly dude with a squid for a head. And yes, his full name was a guy called Squid, and he insisted that everyone called him that. I mean, pretty cool dude, ran into the same troubles I did, was a punchy guy like myself, but he punched people with fire. Helped me out, shared a potion, was generally a bro. We both decided to stick together and train out there, because we both needed to get a lot stronger before we headed back into town. It wasn't going to be nearly that easy. Got to nighttime. Me and Squid set up camp in a cave. Suddenly, shadows, because mod bullshit and Zero whined enough that I was still alive. I was still pretty fucked up, but I could hold my own and Squid was in perfect shape. Still, we barely survived, mainly because Squid's fire damage was beastly. We both agreed that we wouldn't survive another fight like that, so we hightail it out of there and back to town. Yeah, no. Invisible force shield prevented us from going back in. I wasn't surprised. Look on the map. Found a nearby town to hole up. It'll take a couple of days to get there, though, and we were both out of supplies. Neither of us saw any other way, so we got to walking. Ejardo and a guy called Squid. Just two guys on the road to adventure. Or the road to not dying horribly and somehow getting petty revenge, but whatever. Normally, when people traveled, there was random events that would be either good or bad for you. It was up to how much the mods liked you, really. The mods didn't like Squid or Ejardo. If we got something good, they'd find some way to take it away from us. We saved a lady from bandits on the first day. And by that, I mean we kicked the bandits in the nuts, grabbed the lady, and ran like hell. That night, she prison shanked Squid, took what little shit we had gathered, and bailed. When I tried to chase her, she poofed. Gone. Neato burrito. I really don't know why we kept going after that. It was obvious we were unwanted. So, we really should have just quit. I think we were both waiting on the other to give in first. I didn't want to admit defeat, and I knew Squid didn't want to either. We just had to press on. No matter what. Even when we met Sword Lightning Guy again. It had been a few days on the road, and we kept getting shit on. Wolves, rain, another shadow attack. Still, I don't know how we lived, but we scraped by, either by running the fuck away, or through sheer luck and winning a fight. One more day of traveling, and we'd be at the village. We were so close that we could taste it. But then, the dick from the tavern showed up, blocking the road. Never mind how he got ahead of us, but he was, and we had to take it.
Well, 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 if it isn't the wretch from the tavern, and he picked himself up a side dish too.
Squid tells him to take a hike and let us through.
But this is a toll road. You have to pay me to pass. Let's say 1,000 gold.
Fucking what? Tell him that he's full of shit and that nobody has that much money.
No, what a shame. Then you'll have to pay with your lives.
He pulls a sword and blasts Squid, who somehow powers through it. This gives me a chance to get up close and... Well, we've established I can't do fuck all against this guy. I'm banged up pretty good, and fists don't do shit. The only thing I have left is spirit. A metric ass ton of spirit. See, as we were traveling, I was hoarding points. Well, not intentionally. I gained some every day like everyone else. And every time Squid and I killed something, we got a little bit more. Squid was spending his spirit left and right. I wasn't. And since I had overflowing spirit, I had a lot more points than I had any right to have at my level. Even if raw spirit was crap, a lot of crap could still wreck someone's day. Ejardo had a chance. A slim chance, but it was better than nothing. Banzai! Battle cry. Use all that spirit. Crouch for an uppercut. Sword guy doesn't give a shit, actually laughs in my face and doesn't even make an attempt to dodge.
You're kidding, right? We've been through this and you can't hurt me.
You're the only one laughing, asshole. My fist connects with his chin, and so does all of that raw spirit. Didn't do nearly as much damage as elemental attack would, but it was still enough to knock him on his ass, which gave Squid the perfect setup. He jumped on Sword Guy, and blew all of his spirit too. Where once there had been a face, there was now a smoking crater. The Sword Guy died, and two underdogs to boot. Predictably, he pitched a bitch fit, and so did the rest of the players. We were murderers and outlaws and generally horrible people for deciding not to deal with this bullshit anymore. Me and Squid didn't give a single fuck. We had earned our first actual victory. Sure, we were nearly dead, defenseless, and still had to make it to the village, but we won. Things were looking up, at least for a little while. We still had to worry about Zero and his crap. Zero was some kind of king or tyrant overlord or whatever, and his village was still in his little authority zone. So when we finally arrived in the village, guess what special surprise is waiting for us? If you guessed invisible, immune to everything, force field, congratulations, give yourself a gold star. And for good measure, he teleports in and taunts us, saying he'll follow us until we're broken and mad and shut the fuck up already. He He crackles and ports away. Squid falls to his knees. He's had enough. We came all this way, all for nothing. Sure, we beat someone, but he'd be rezzed and in perfect health the next day. So what do we do now? Squid was ready to quit. Ejardo wouldn't have it. We train, Squid. We train. We hiked up a nice grassy hill near the village, and then proceeded to beat the ever-loving crap out of each other. Whenever you got into a fight, you got a couple of points towards leveling, win or loss. The only problem is that most characters couldn't spar against one another, as they'd kill each other pretty quickly. Elemental attacks and weapons combined had huge damage multipliers, so sparring would quickly end with people dead. We didn't have any weapons. An unarmed combat would take days of wailing on someone to actually kill them. The only reason Squid was alright was because of his firepower. So, as long as we didn't use any spirit, we could beat each other silly, pass out, wait a while to heal, and do it all over again. It was stupid, it was cheesy, and it pissed everyone off. But it fucking worked. Some said that the shadows would attack us, but we were just close enough to the village that they couldn't. I'm still not sure why Zero or even the mods let us get away with this shit. I guess they didn't see it as anything to actually be worried about. Eventually we leveled up though. It was a slow process, and there were better ways of leveling. But this was all we had. Plus, it gave me another fuck ton of spirit points. Ejardo pumped up strength first, evenly distributed the rest. Got a power to double the rate at which he gained spirit per day. I had a plan. Squid just buffed his Fire Fist. It was a good way to go. Now we just had to find somewhere to rest up properly. Somewhere to regroup. We couldn't just stay and wail on each other for another level. We'd gotten lucky the first time, but now there was talks of a few other players jumping us. We had to move. Neither of us knew where the hell we were going to go or what we were going to do. We just hit the road and tried to get as far away from Zero and everyone else as we could. The mods fucked with us for the first few days, but eventually they just got bored and left us alone. Sometimes they'd throw a few shadows our way, but it was nothing we couldn't handle. Random events just stopped happening for us. I think it was mainly due to us not really bugging anyone anymore. We were doing our own thing, so everyone just sort of forgot about us. Except Zero. He was still mighty pissy about me living this long. I had no idea what his deal was. Maybe it was just a challenge of his authority that I represented. Or maybe he was just a colossal prick. Either way, once we left his authority zone, or whatever, he sent one of his lackeys after us. Quick look at his character sheet. I knew just how much Zero hated us. His name was Golden Harl, and the dude was basically invincible. Magic armor let him resist all elements massively. Plus, it was super light, so he could fly around and do his ninja flippy shit. He could heal himself completely by spending a couple of spirit, and his spirit refreshed basically whenever he wanted it to. It was official. The mods just didn't give a shit. Oh, and we were screwed too. All we could do was keep going forward and hope he didn't catch up to us. He did, and damn quick too. He met us while we were traveling along a gorge, and promptly tried to knock me over the side. Golden Harl wasn't fucking around, no words, only pain. He meant business. I barely managed to dodge him, which was, of course, met with public outcry. But I was dangerously close to the edge. Squid tried a fire punch with a couple of spirit behind it. No sell. And Golden Harl got a free counterattack because fuck you, he's Golden Harl. Squid is knocked down, but it gave me an opening. I grabbed Golden Harl by his waist and gave him a suplex. My high strength let me get in a few points of damage, and it put me in a better position. It didn't really matter though, as he was back up and fully healed a second later. I helped Squid up, but we were pretty much already dead. Golden Harl finally spoke up.
Any last words?
Bonsai! The fucker was wide open, and his back was at the edge of the cliff too. A quick PM to Squid was all it took, and the quick plan went off like clockwork. Squid ran diversion, going high for a fire punch to the face. Golden Harl didn't bother to dodge. He was invincible after all. He forgot one thing. Raw spirit can't be resisted. Edgardo went in for the gut punch, with all that built-up spirit from training and the road. It wasn't enough to kill Golden Harl, not by a long shot, but it was enough to knock him backwards, and that last step was a doozy. Golden Harl fell into the canyon, and we only stayed long enough to hear the dull thud of him hitting the ground. I could practically hear Zero grinding his teeth into powder as he tattled to the mods, who really didn't care enough to do anything. Surprisingly, I barely heard anything from Golden Harl's player. Just a simple PM saying, "Well played." I almost felt sorry that he had to meet his end like that. After that, we were pretty much free to keep going until we hit another village. Zero couldn't get to us here, so no shield and no bullshit. We could finally rest. Well, maybe, we were still broke, and there was a small army of players after us. Apparently Golden Harl was a pretty popular character, and by killing him, we were now at the top of everyone's hit list. Fantastic. Squid slept in an alley, and I kept watch, trying to get a plan together. We basically had come up to a sort of unspoken agreement. Squid was tired of Zero's shit, and so was I. We wanted him dead and broken. The problem was that 2 low-level characters could do fuck all against the guy. His level was literally listed as an infinity sign. When Squid took watch, I read over the fluff of the setting, looking for something, anything that could help us. I found it in the city of Haven. Haven was the second biggest city in the setting, just barely smaller than Zero's place. It was kind of a big deal though. See, it was home to the Spirit Well. It was a font of power that everyone flocked to. As long as you were in Haven, your spirit points recharged instantly, up to your cap. I didn't have a cap. I still wonder how anybody in their right mind missed this little detail of overflowing spirit. It was just set up so perfectly. Maybe I was being a massive that guy for exploiting this thing like I did. I don't really care. Everyone but a few people were complete assholes, and I wanted their little club destroyed. It was petty, it was stupid, and it was probably hurtful to a few people. But Edgardo had a mission, and a guy called Squid was going to help him see it through. If they ever got to Haven in one piece. I swear, we were the only 2 people following the traveling rules because the horde of players chasing us caught up to us a lot quicker than they should have. We had half a day to rest up before we had to hit the road again. I was useless without a buildup of spirit, and Squid could only fend off so many people before he'd die. The only route to Haven was a long, winding road through the mountains, and we'd be ambushed if we tried to set up camp anywhere. It'd take too long, and time wasn't on their side. So, Edgardo had a crazy idea. What if they climbed over the mountains? It was basically suicide, as the random events were especially harsh in that terrain. No one would follow us. After all, something might happen to their super special characters. Squid was on board, and he brought up an interesting point. The mods were ignoring us. Everyone was so pissed off at us. But in the grand scheme of things, we hadn't really done anything major. We killed a grand total of 2 characters through sheer luck and broken mechanics. And I had basically given their idol Zero a giant middle finger for simply surviving as long as I had. And Zero could only suck so much cock. So we started climbing, making rolls and getting through by the skin of our teeth. Every once in a while a mod would glance over and make shit hard for us, but overall, we didn't have that much trouble. That's because trouble was waiting for us on the other side of the mountain. From our perch, we got a view of the players coming for us. There's no way we could take them all. And if we waited, they'd just get to Haven and wait for us there. And then there was the guy, waiting just underneath us. Golden Harl, back from the dead. They must have fished him out of the canyon and had him rest. Or maybe he survived the fall and healed. Who knows? We know he saw us, but he didn't move. He could have just jumped up at any time he wanted and murdered us right there and then. But he didn't. After a while, Squid got tired of waiting. He climbed down, and Edgardo followed to have his back in case anything went south. Squid asked him what he wanted. Golden Harl just wanted to talk. Turns out that he had more to his story than we knew about. Golden Harl was in his RP just as long as Zero was, and frankly he was tired of Zero's shit. Golden Harl earned everything he had, and didn't need to resort to whining to the mods to get what he wanted. When we asked why he tried to kill us, he said that it was either follow Zero's orders or get his shit shoved in. In a 1-on-1 fight, Golden Harl just couldn't compete, mainly because Zero could do whatever the fuck he wanted and no one would bat an eye. After we killed him, he was basically done. He was satisfied with the ending he got, but instead Zero revived him and sent him to kill us again. Golden Harl had other plans though. Squid was suspicious, but I believed him. I'm still not sure why. Maybe I was desperate. But I told him our plan. Technically, I told everyone our plan, as it was on the public threads. I'm an idiot, sue me. Golden Harl said he could get us to Haven. The story was over, and he ceased giving a single fuck about what anyone else would say about this. He only had one condition. We had to promise we'd kill Zero, and end this once and for all. Edgardo and Squid agreed. This was our only shot, and we weren't about to throw it away. A massive shitstorm erupted from the player base as we joined up with Golden Harl. Zero called him a traitor to everything the RP stood for. And everyone made such a fuss that the mods nearly banned the guy. Golden Harl had a bit of sway with the mods too, and he got lucky as shit when they took his side, when he pointed out that he had done nothing wrong. With the mods appeased, that just left the army of players gunning for us. The second we hit the road, they were on us. There was no fucking around anymore, and the travel rules were basically out of the picture. A horde of superpowered loners and misfits charged towards us, flinging fire and lightning and all manner of weapons, all of them driven by their singular hatred of Edgardo, a guy called Squid, and the traitor, Golden Harl. Golden Harl weathered the tide, taking kunai and fireballs and shadow spears without so much as flinching, because fuck you, he's Golden Harl. Me and Squid ran behind Golden Harl as he cleared a path, letting us to the other side of the army. As we kept going down the path, Golden Harl stayed behind, covering our escape. To this day, I don't know if he survived or not. I'll never forget his bravery. Since everyone else was doing it, we ignored the travel rules ourselves, arriving in Haven near instantly. Zero bitched. Nobody hurt him. There's one last obstacle, though. One last player. Kane. The Shadowmancer. This fucking guy. He had a power letting him control Shadow. His interpretation of what this actually did was very, very loose. And since he was in Haven, he could abuse this like nobody's business. As soon as we set foot in the city, Squid and me instantly get paralyzed. We called him on his bullshit. I'm not sure why.
I control the darkness in people's hearts. The darkness in everyone's soul. You are mine.
Eat a bag of dicks. Squid tells him that's not how it works. Kane isn't listening because it's his powers and he says that's how it works and wah. Meanwhile, I just sit back and ask myself a question. Why can't I hold all this spirit? Spend infinite spirit, break Kane's hold, brace for whining.
How? You can't resist me. The darkness is in everyone's heart.
Okay, it's Edgardo's turn to be cheesy. You're wrong. My soul is a shining beacon, filled with a light and a burning hope that no shadow can touch. It is a pinpoint of justice, a shining star that will deliver freedom to the universe. I will root out the darkness, the evil of this land. No shadow will be spared my light. Kane just can't comprehend how he's about to lose. He tries the shadow paralysis thing again. No cell, infinite spirit. Who the hell do you think you're dealing with? Banzai! Swift uppercut. Battle cry. Ultimate raw spirit punch. Kane gets punched into the sun. Cue shit being lost by absolutely everyone again. But Squid is okay. We rest up and figure out our next move. My ultra powers only work if I'm in Haven. That doesn't do us a lot of good. But Squid finds out that Haven's unlimited spirit effect lingers for a day after we leave. Zero is weeks away in his city. More players are on their way to Haven. And even though I have infinite spirit, I can only use it to punch people. I'll get killed eventually. We're basically stuck. Until I notice that we've leveled up. I don't really give a fuck about my stats at this point, but there's a power that really catches my eye. Teleportation. I have exactly enough points to purchase it. Normally I wouldn't have enough spirit to use it, but Haven, so it works. Squid upgraded his fire punch. It was a good way to go. I tell Squid that he can stay behind. This is going to be dangerous, and we might not come back. He tells me he's with me to the end, and he intends to see this thing through, and that he's got my back no matter what. In the middle of the town square, Edgardo and a guy called Squid share a sweaty, shirtless, muscly, manly hug for all the world to see. It was super homo. Actually, we just had to be touching so I could teleport us both. But shut up. We arrived outside the city, and the shield was still up. Zero mocked us, saying that he was invincible behind his wall, and that we couldn't do anything.
The shield can withstand 1,000 times the force of anything you could possibly throw at it.
People just keep forgetting. Raw spirit can't be resisted by anything. I'll just have to hit it 1,001 times harder. Banzai! As Edgardo's fist connected with the shield, all of his spirit was pushed into it, causing a surge that made the shield glow brighter than the sun for a moment. This was perfect. Edgardo and Squid used everyone's blindness to our advantage. We were smart enough to look away. We hauled ass past everyone, them swinging violently to try and hit us, actually hitting everyone around them, causing a lot of damage. To his surprise, even Zero was affected by this, blinded by his own failsafe. We stood in front of him, waiting for his stupid mug to get his eyesight back. Finally, he recovered. When he looked up to see what the damage was, there we were, the personal pain in the neck to Zero. His face turned red with anger, blood veins popping out of nearly every inch of his face. I was fairly certain even the player behind him was about to have a stroke.
What have you done? What have you done?
I broke your little pussy dome.
You'll find that I can't be broken.
Edgardo clenched his fist. Squid raised his. Zero stood up. He revealed no weapon. He was like me in a sense. He was a brawler with some magic. Gonna use more of your telepathy bullshit?
No. This time I'll humor you. We'll fight hand to hand.
I swung my fist, but it phased through him. Fucking after images. He appeared right behind me, but with my spirit still bulging out of my pants, I teleported several feet away. We engaged in a battle of not touching each other, moving from one point to the next. I had an idea, after way too much time with this. We played a game of leapfrog. We kept moving behind each other, but I had a target. On his sixth movement, he was right in front of Squid, who knew just what I was planning. As Zero went to make a killing blow, Squid summoned a massive amount of spirit into one fiery blaze punch. It wasn't enough to do any major damage, but it was enough to distract him. It gave me a chance to build up a punch, while Squid took him on. All that teleportation was actually lagging my spirit recharge. Surprisingly, Squid was able to dodge the punches and even deliver some of his own. He was a mix of scared and completely ecstatic that he was actually fighting against this massive cocksucker. My punch was nearly ready, but I heard something that made my heart sink. A crunch of bone and skin. I looked up. Squid, Zero's hand was pierced through his chest. He dropped. Zero stood over his body. His blood pooled around him. He smirked.
It's about time I purge the worthless filth from this world. I'll start with you two.
I could feel my body tremble. I saw our time together. Him taking me in and helping me. Taking down Lightning Sword Guy. Being stranded outside the town. Beating on each other for a better life. Our travel to the Haven. Beating Golden Harl. Climbing the mountain, running through those players while Golden Harl saved us. Arguing with that shadow prick. This was it. I knew Squid wouldn't want me to be sad. Not all that we've been through. Not with the promise we made to Golden Harl. I received a PM. It was Squid. All he said was, "Finish this motherfucker." I didn't have the voices of countless users behind me. I didn't have the determination of anyone but me. But that's all I needed. Anger and determination. And like my spirit, I had plenty. I cocked my fist back. Zero copied. I could see no one else but my target. The whole world fell black around us. No one had the balls to interrupt us.
Do you think you're the first one to test me? Dozens before you, and dozens after you. And all of them will fall just like you.
But there's one difference.
And what would that be?
Those idiots didn't exploit a broken mechanic. Zero's eyes widened. We launched, lunging with speeds only known to light. Edgardo had an element right then. Fire. The fire in his eyes and soul. Our fists shattering the very coding they were written in. Shockwaves rippling through the world. From levels 1 to 1,000, they could all feel the powers forcing their way at each other. Our knuckles made contact, slamming into the other, ripping apart Zero's throne room, shattering the ground, igniting the air, and creating a blinding burst of energy. Edgardo awakened, laying on the ground, his right arm throbbing. He sat up, looking around. Across from him was Zero's body. He stammered and got up, walking over to Zero to see what was left. Zero's right arm was gone, and his body was pulverized. He was done. The other players wanted me dead, in-game and life. The mods stepped in and banned me. Fuck if I care. The place was pissing me off anyways. I came back a few days later only to find that the forum was shut down due to all the butthurt players. I hope Squid found a better RP for you. I would ask, but we never exchanged emails. But I made my mark. We did something no one thought possible. Not just me, but Squid and Golden Harl. We won. Yes, I'm putting this update at the start of the video, fuck you. After this green text, I'm essentially done doing 4chan stories. As many know, green texts were never my most favorite content type on this channel. I haven't had enthusiasm to make them in a long time. But as you know, this channel has become reliant on them. However, viewership is being throttled across all videos, so I'd rather do what I like and lose viewership than continue to burn out on what I don't like, and still lose viewership. I also want to make this channel less of a weight than it has been. This means I'll be taking my time to find stories I like and more time between uploads. For those of you who were here only for green text, I hope you stick around. For those of you who won't, maybe some other time. Long history of online roleplay. Gotten to a point where I've realized the half-ass chat room RP I've been doing is fucking dreadful. Hungry for an upgrade, but lack the real-life friend base required to get into tabletop RPGs. Join a small RP forum hidden on the 56th or so page of Google. Literally about 20 people on the entire site, but it looks alright. Everyone seems to be pretty experienced, literate, not polluted with Mary Sue's. Despite not being tied to any specific tabletop system, they made a vague effort to implement stats and roles. Basically, you'd have a bare-bones character sheet with 6 primary stats, some skills and unique character abilities. They have about 5 separate settings, ranging from fantasy to sci-fi. Every single one being played by the same group of people, albeit with different characters. Each setting has its own subforum, with a thread for every arc. Browse through them all, but the sci-fi one catches my eye. Nothing stands out about it, typical gritty sci-fi, but it took my fancy anyways. Check out the most recently created thread. Wanted, Captain Drake. First post was written by the board admin himself, styled like an online job posting for mercs, with details on the objective, location, and payment. Pretty simple concept. There's a bounty out on some big bad space pirate guy. For being one thread among half a dozen or so, it was strangely popular. Almost everyone is playing this one. Didn't take long to find out why. Reason 1. Every single fucking character on the site was a mercenary. Reason 2. The bounty was fuck huge. It seemed like you could actually spend money on equipment on this forum. Give the whole thread a quick read. Forum admin was acting as a GM equivalent, setting up plot threads, describing settings, and posting as NPCs. The party was a group of 10 or so unaffiliated mercenaries. So far they did a raid side quest for some bartender for information on Drake's safe house. Found one of his pirate lackeys when they finally got there, and raided the place. Interrogated said lackey to get Drake's actual location. Learned that he's planning to leave the planet by tomorrow night. And finally, boarded his ship, killed most of his crew, and fought their way to the door of the captain's cabin. The most recent post was of the party leader, the guy called Archer, having just blown the door open. No response from the admin/GM. Figure they must have left before that post came through. Taking a look at the post dates, I realized that this was a common problem. Players would have to wait days at a time for the game to continue if the GM ever disappeared for a while. Well, fuck that. After reading all this shit, I'm starting to get pretty hyped up. I want to play, but I have to wait for someone to start a new arc, since this one is basically about to end. I'm too impatient. It has to happen, now. I create an account. Username, Captain Drake. At this point, I notice that the guy playing Archer, as well as a few others, are still online. Probably waiting to see if the admin comes back. Hasn't been that long since his last post. Gotta act fast. I don't know exactly why, but I decided to act like the GM. I guess since it was too late for any new players to join in, the only option I had left was to join as a GM. After studying the admin's style of posting and narration, I start to write up my first post. Describe interior of the captain's cabin. Describe the man sitting in the captain's chair. Describe him swiveling around to face the party. Hey there, fellas. At this point, I realize there's a high chance I'm going to get ignored completely. Lose the will to expand the post any further. It's of passable length anyway. Post. Wait. 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 Getting increasingly anxious as I refresh the page, checking to see who's looking at the thread. Did I just spill my spaghetti? Finally, someone responds. It's Archer. He's posting in brackets. That means out of character. Welcome to the forum, but you can't just join in like that, lol. What the fuck was I thinking? Well, I start posting up an out-of-character response, trying to pass it off as a newbie mistake. Post all written up. I decide to refresh the page on another tab before I post. Someone else might have replied in the meantime, after all. Oh shit, they did. It's not in brackets. One of the less edgy mercenaries described stepping into the cabin, whistling at how fancy it was. Typical scoundrel type. mentioned that he was wearing a baseball cap in every other post.
Nice ship you got here. Shame it's gonna go to waste on a punk like you. Seriously, who wears a cape indoors?
Yeah, I described my guy as wearing a cape, fuck you. I basically just ripped off the appearance of the character and picked related. After I'm done reading, I refresh again. Another post. One of the more serious characters this time. Beefy guy with a Barrett-style gun. Arm thing going on. Who wears a cape at all? It's the 45th century. Ah, shit, nigga. Below him is Archer again, basically asking why people are going along with this. I considered sticking around to hear their responses, but fuck that. They're going along with it, and I didn't want to keep them waiting. I type up my response. Well damn, you're pretty judgmental for a bunch of mercenaries, aren't you? Mocking a man's cape. Ought to be ashamed of yourselves. I should mention these are approximations of what was actually said. I can't remember the exact wording. Nice of you to let me flap my gums before you shoot me dead, though. I appreciate it. I describe leaning back in my seat, unarmed but smiling and focusing intently on the two players that were playing along. I figured the others might get jealous of the interaction and join in too. How much are they paying you anyway? This time the responses are rapid fire. Everyone currently online, minus Archer, is rolling with it. I focus on one response in particular, since there's a lot of overlap in what they're saying and doing. Pale girl with big, chunky cybernetic arms catches my attention. Because pale girl with big, chunky cybernetic arms, mainly. She mentions the bounty. 150,000 credits. I respond quickly. No more hammering on F5. Let's see, 150k. Split that 8 ways. I'm feeling a little too pressured to do the math, what with all these guns pointing at me. But I think you would agree that's a mighty small sum. Not to mention, that leader of yours will be wanting the lion's share. Sow the seeds of discontent. Drake. Sow them hard. At this point, Archer responds. Quickly, too. I imagine he didn't want to risk anyone taking the hint and getting any ideas. He basically pressed the barrel of his gun to Drake's head, telling him to shut up. A little surprised he didn't just shoot, but I'm not going to complain. One more response comes in before I start typing. The return of Baseball Cap, otherwise known as Scurrit. Already liking this guy on account of naming his character something like Scurrit. He puts a hand on Archer's shoulder, suggesting they hear me out, in case I have a better offer. I would fucking hope so, or this is going to be the most pointless thread hijack ever. Time to see how far I can take this. Smart man. You gotta wonder, with such a generous bounty on my head, why didn't my crew turn coat, cash it in weeks ago? I'll tell you why. There's a bigger payday in their sights. Only now I find myself without a crew. Whole lot of vacancies for some aspiring mercs like yourselves. What do you say, kids? How do you feel about making 10 times what you came here for? I'm getting pretty hyped at this point. I know which direction I want to take this in. I just need them to fall for the sales pitch. I wait a little while, then refresh. Archer responds almost fucking immediately. Save your breath, scum. Then he pulls the trigger. Describes my brain splattering across the cabin's back wall. He already had his gun pressed against my temple. By their rules, there's no way I could react. Fuck. Completely demoralized, not sure what to do. What could I even respond with? Refresh again. By their rules, there's no way I could react. But Archer assumed this was an uncontested action. Turns out, it wasn't. Which means it was time to break out the dice. Lo and fucking behold, Robo-Arm Girl responds with a post describing her trying to yank Archer's wrist upwards before he fired, accompanying her post as a small out-of-character blurb. Completed agility. Along with a Forium-generated random number at the bottom. 17 on a 20-sided die. I hadn't had a chance to figure out how all this roll shit worked on the Forium yet, but Archer responded not long after. No roleplay, just a number. 14. With no clue what's happening, I continue to beat my F5 key until Robo-Arm Girl posts again. It's a description of her wrenching his arm away just in time, with the bullet lodging itself in the ship's hull. I later found out that, as replacement GM, I should have done a hull integrity roll as a response to that, but hey, learning experience. No time to waste here. I finger-fucked my keyboard as soon as I'm done reading. Get up off my chair, getting up close and personal with Archer. Much obliged. Your brave leader's becoming a problem, ain't he? I can see he's a man without ambition. A dead end. This one. I describe a shit-eating grin, then move on to Drake returning to his seat, swiveling back around and using a remote to activate what is essentially a giant plasma TV built into the walls of the cabin. Long story short, I pull a completely different arc out of my ass. Drake explains the details out loud, with visual aids showing up on the space TV to drive the points home. Ripped off the idea of a Firefly comic I read years ago. Details have gotten a bit foggy with time, but as far as I remember, it had something to do with a vast reserve of ancient Earth relics housed in a derelict space station, in an abandoned sector of space. Posts take fucking ages to write up, since I'm pausing every 5 minutes to make up more bullshit out of nowhere. When I finally finish and post, things really start to get interesting. Things go almost exactly as I hoped after that. As I said before, money can actually be spent on things under this system's rules, which means the arbitrary 800k haul I pulled out of thin air is being taken dead seriously by these guys. They're sold. One by one, the players express their interest in my proposal. Except for one. After some more negotiation, I described turning back to Archer. Well, since we're all on the same page here, what do you say a gesture of good faith? Let's throw the stick in the mud, out the airlock. I'm grinning like a fucking madman in real life at this point. In a very short amount of time, I develop a raging hate boner for Archer. But his response makes me realize something. Now you hold on one goddamn minute. You have any idea why I ended up leading this merry band of assholes? Easy answer. I'm the best shot, and for the record, I like my credits as much as the next guy. Now, you've come up with a better offer. I'm willing to play ball. If you're sensible, you'll take me along for the ride. Guy playing Archer is kind of a bro, man. I hated him at first, but I realized at this point, the guy was just playing his character. What I came to learn was one impatient motherfucker. At this point, I stop and take stock of what just happened. I came in out of nowhere, hijacked a thread while the admin was at work or sleeping or getting railed or whatever the fuck. Established myself as a dick-ass space pirate with a ship and crew, however dead they may be. Effectively recruited a new crew, and came up with a new mission for us to tackle together. The thread effectively ends here. People start to post out of character, the majority saying that they need to get offline and sleep. Before he leaves, Skurrit tells me that he had fun, but it comes with a pretty blatant warning. But man, you're gonna get banned so fucking hard tomorrow. Shit, that's right. No matter how successful I may have been, I'm still gonna have an angry admin to deal with. My sci-fi misadventures may end before they even begin. Getting pretty tired myself, I follow their lead and try to get some sleep, but it's tough. The connection of satisfaction and dread keeps me awake for hours. After work the next day, I logged in, almost immediately, hoping my account wouldn't be banned outright. The admin was online. I had 3 unread private messages, but my name was still there. Captain Drake. Motherfucker. Terrified, I opened my inbox and checked the private messages. One from Archer. Subject: good luck. 2 from Hawk, the forum admin himself. No subject written for either. I shit my pants accordingly. The first private message was long, and I mean really fucking long. The highlights: first of all, I don't appreciate you taking advantage of the situation while I was absent. However, the forum operates on 3 strikes policy. Took on the role of a storyteller without authorization, which I consider your first strike. I called GM storytellers for some reason. Never figured out why, since they were clearly familiar with tabletop terminology.
You also entered an RP thread without first applying for character validation, which I consider your second strike. I realized after taking a less rushed look about the forums that you weren't supposed to jump in even as a player. There was this sub-forum where people would post character sheets and histories. Then they'd wait for the admins or one of the few other important people to authorize the character. Good way to weed out shitty or overpowered characters, but it always pissed me off that they had that much power over character creation. I've yet to receive any complaints. However, if anyone here comes to me with any issues regarding your behavior, that would be your third strike, and I will ban you immediately. I suggest you follow the rules from now on, if you plan on continuing to roleplay here. Hawk. My first thought was that Hawk was a pretentious cunt. There was a level of formality in his private message that should be reserved for meetings between fucking world powers, not forum admins. But the 3 strikes thing struck me as fair, and somehow I liked the idea of having only 1 strike left. Living on the edge, I guess. Open the 2nd PM, as an afterthought. Just 1 line. Oh, and welcome to the forum. Archer's private message was civil enough, telling me that he enjoyed the session, and that he would put in a good word for me with Hawk. No idea if that had any effect on whether I got banned or not, but it felt pretty good either way. A couple of days passed with jack shit happening. Only activity was in the off-topic boards, which I never bothered checking out. But one day, a new thread gets posted in the sci-fi section. Under a black flag. Oh shit. It's another setup thread by Hawk. There's a brief synopsis of the past arc's events, mentioning that the mercenaries found themselves forging an unlikely alliance, as well as a description of the new objective. Sure enough, it was the exact asshole quest I proposed before, only fleshed out and modified slightly. Now, I might have hijacked the GM's position to begin with, but I came to the forum with the intent of playing. You know, as a player. So I was happy to let Hawk take the seat again, and begrudgingly wrote up my character application for the one and only Captain Drake. At the time, I thought me and Hawk were square. But things between us did not end there. From here I more or less became part of the family. The mission was pretty typical in retrospect. It seemed like Hawk was trying to get things back under control. Plot was simple, so more than anything it was a way for us to develop the party dynamic. Although Captain was literally in my username, only a few of the players actually treated me like I was their leader. Robo Girl, who I forgot to introduce by her name, it was Faye, was a really stoic and standoffish, but every now and then she would follow up with a yes with a sir. Her combat style was pretty direct, in that she'd run up and punch people to death with her cyber arms. Skirt was eager to act like I was his boss. I think he realized his character fit the Weasley underling position perfectly. He used an SMG, but prioritized social stats over combat stats, so he wasn't that useful. Archer would fucking die before he called me sir, but I kinda liked it that way. I was surprised to learn that he was a sniper. Maxed the shit out of his aiming stats so that he could headshot virtually anything, anywhere. Besides those 3, there were 2 others willing to go along with this bizarre turn of events. One was Ronan. I shit you not, he was the most boring character ever designed. High-frequency katana, character ability that let him reflect bullets at the cost of health. Useful in battle, but seriously, this man had 0 personality. He was like an angsty brick. Finally, there was Zion. She was the resident psionic. Adorable character, about 17 years old and naive as hell. She was under the impression she was an X-Men, holding her forehead whenever she did anything psychic. We went through tons of missions, at least a dozen unrelated arcs in which we were simply trying to make as much money as possible. There was character development. We unlocked Faye's tragic backstory. Zion temporarily fell in love with Skurrit, which confused everyone, including Skurrit. Archer was once confronted with the choice to either abandon the party and run off with the payload, or go back and risk his life to save them. He came back. Nothing interesting ever happened with Ronan. Ever. And Skurrit almost betrayed us at least once per arc, but we forgave him. Ultimately, we grew close and I felt accepted. Along the way, something unexpected happened. Hawk introduced a new character, Seraph. She was part of an independent intergalactic police squadron, or something like that. I never actually figured out what her official position was. Basically, she was the space admiral lady who would be commanding the giant alliance ships when they came to foil our plans. Every time she popped up, which was often, we'd bark at each other over the comms. At first, I thought she was Hawk's last resort, a Mary Sue DMPC, to finally end Captain Drake's life and get the story back on track. But she grew on me. And by grew on me, I mean literally grew on me. She was the complete opposite of Drake. Polite, direct, formal, and slightly prudish. Pick-related. Hawk used this character as the basis for her appearance. A lot of players used images to define their characters, but none of us expected Hawk to go the Animu route. As lonely online roleplayers are inclined to do, I began to adopt a more flirty approach with Hawk's lady nemesis. Hawk seemed to pick up on this, and the two of us began to mutually freak out. She PM'd me one night, partway through one of the later arcs, and confided that she was worried we were becoming that guys, shoehorning romance into a setting that perhaps didn't warrant it, at risk of derailing the game should we take it too far. I felt exactly the same, but it would be redundant for us to both be terrified at the same time. So I took the opposite approach. Better get it out of our system then. Now, I immediately regretted saying that. Hawk stopped replying, probably assuming I was suggesting we ERP. I was not suggesting we ERP, goddammit, Anyway, we fell out of direct contact for a while, communicating only through Drake and Seraph. The arc that came next was probably the one that will stick with me the longest. This time, we didn't get a new thread. There was no elaborate setup for the arc. Instead, an old thread which had reached its conclusion was simply revived by an unexpected post from Skurrit. He described himself making his way through the ship, familiar enough with his crewmates to know exactly what each character would be doing as he did. Until finally, his way into that familiar captain's cabin. "Hey boss, heard some juicy gossip on a supply run. And I know how you like juicy gossip."
That I do, Scut. Don't keep me in suspense.
Skurrit went on to describe what would be, by far, the most lucrative job Drake and company had ever taken. 10 million credits. Now, after working together for so long, each of our individual characters had all the goodies they could ever want. Faye had upgraded her robo-arms, Archer had a top-tier sniper rifle, and Drake was sporting a high-frequency rapier for when he felt like styling on niggas. The only thing he never imagined to upgrade was the ship itself. The Forum had gotten more popular over time. While sci-fi was our turf, the fantasy subforum had been growing at an insane rate. Of course, Hawk had his hands full with our hijinks, so he had to defer control to the other subforums, to new moderators. Now, we could abandon sci-fi. We could abandon these characters, this ship, all this history. But why the fuck would we do that? I tell you all this because that's what ran through my mind when Skurrit mentioned that 10 million credit payday. We upgrade the ship. That gives us the extra space we need for more crew members. It gives us the excuse we need to make the sci-fi section more welcoming, bring over some of those fantasy fags, make sci-fi the main attraction again. I don't know why this was so important to me, but I had this mental image in my head. A mental image of Hawk putting in all this work, only to be overshadowed by the neighboring boards and ultimately rendered obsolete. Things had become routine, but now I was getting hyped all over again. I had a goal. The odds were against me. Let's fucking do this. The mission was simple. Faye, Ronan, Archer, Skurrit, and Zion launched a full-scale assault on one of the most secure Off-World Alliance facilities in existence. Inside are the blueprints for an experimental new fast-and-light engine of an unprecedented caliber. Something that would extend humanity's reach to the furthest corners of space. Something the richest people in the galaxy would be more than happy to spend their fortunes on. All I had to do was sneak in, while the security personnel were distracted, grab the loot, and get the hell out of there. The mission was a clusterfuck, to say the least. Ronan was killed outright barely 6 turns into the assault. Faye took a beating, but Zion pulled off a ridiculous high roll to make her invisible to the enemies, just long enough for her to limp back into cover. The perils of being a melee fighter at the endgame. My sneak rolls were solid for a while, but all it took was one failure to set the whole place on alert. At the risk of losing all credibility as a storyteller, it was fucking intense. There wasn't just the illusion of difficulty. We were seriously in danger of getting wiped every turn. Survival seemed implausible for me as soon as I failed that stealth roll. But I had incredible luck. Enemies missed almost every attack roll, and my crazy high aim modifiers meant I could land hits even with the penalties from shooting while on the move. Eventually I slip into the deepest levels of the complex. Just as I'm drawing close to the vault, I get a call from the team. It's Archer. Drake, tell me you got the damn engine.
Well, I'm staring at the vault doors, so I guess that's a no. But with an uplifting undertone.
Thank fuck for that. We're getting butchered up here. Ronan's down, Faye's out cold, and Skurrit's MIA. We won't be able to cover your escape. We pop up for another attack and they'll finish off the last of us.
Yeah, dire strats and all that. I'll think of something.
Since the amount of post I take to finish that conversation directly correlates with the amount of ass rape going on elsewhere, I hang up pretty abruptly, and I make my way to the vault doors. Bizarrely, Hawk doesn't give me a roll to hack the door controls, or a roll to pick the lock, or a roll to force them open. So, throwing caution to the wind, I walk inside. All Hawk describes is a vast, empty room, with a lone, white-haired figure, sitting at a featureless steel table, upon which rests absolutely nothing. I begin to type up my response, but a quick refresh elicits a new post. From Skurrit. Skurrit should not be able to post right now. He's not present in this scene. Then I remember something from his sheet. His character ability. This character receives a static +4 bonus to sneak rolls. In addition, in cases where his character is rolling sneak against other players, those rolls will be executed in a private channel with a designated GM. Skurrit presses the barrel of his SMG against the back of Drake's head. Sorry about this one, mate. You really should have seen it coming, though. I'm shell-shocked. I mean, yes, Skurrit has tried to betray me literally twice a week for months, but fuck, man, come on. Hawk posts again. This time not as a storyteller, but as Seraph. She rises from her seat, smiling, a reserved smile. Walks around the table, fingers trailing across the surface. All I can think about is how goddamn hot this character is, even though she may be about to kill me.
You know, Drake, all those years spent chasing you. No subtlety, no tact, a simple cat and mouse game. It all seems rather silly in retrospect, now that I know. All I had to do was sit here and wait for your inevitable arrival.
Her post end. My turn, motherfucker. There are plenty of things I'd like to do, but Hawk is emotionless when it comes to storytelling. If I try anything, she will give me a ridiculously difficult role to pull it off before Skurrit ends me. Drake has too much history. There's too much at stake. I can't be foolish. Drake merely grits his teeth, both hands slowly raising into the air. First of all, Skurrit, fuck you. Second of all, actually we might need to skip to 5th, or maybe 6th. 6th of all, this is a mighty contradictory ambush even for you. You have any idea how many of your men have bled out while you were sitting down here? Once again, he posted Seraph.
I don't dare to count. There's blood on my hands, certainly. Yet, that's always been the case, hasn't it? For every single day I've allowed you to roam this galaxy, every day I've failed to apprehend you, I imagine hundreds have died.
Another unexpected skirt post comes in by the time I finish reading.
Well, for the record, we're only pirates, not mass murderers or nothing. Don't get me wrong, definitely on your side. What with a gun to this man's head and all that. Just saying, you might be exaggerating the magnitude of our wrongdoings, that's all.
I start to type up a response, but Hawk's really pumping out the dialogue. I think he was preparing for this for a long time, maybe even rehearsing lines for later.
No, you're not murderers. Not directly, at least. There was a time when I enjoyed our gain streak. I was foolish enough to believe there were no greater ramifications. But it only took a cursory glance at the planets you've terrorized to see how wrong I was. People have suffered. They have starved to death from your petty thievery. Families have been torn apart, lives willingly relinquished. I'm done playing with you, Drake.
Finally, it seems like I have an opportunity to post. In a situation like this, it's impossible not to be impatient. I type at the speed of fucking sound. I don't care how difficult the rolls are. They won't be getting any easier if I don't act now. First, Scudder's getting his balls kicked. That's non-negotiable. Then I move to wrench the gun out of his hands while he's stunned. And finally, pivoting on one foot, I finish the turn with the SMG, aimed in Seraph's direction. I'm doing this for you, Hawk. You fucking triple nigger. The rolls come in. They're hard. As hard as I expected. But I have 12 arcs worth of experience under me. 12 arcs worth of inflated combat stats. Sure enough, I hit the difficulties. One with ease. The other two with ball-bustingly close rolls salvaged only by my mods. Unfortunately, Seraph gets a roll to ready her rifle at the same time. Sure enough, she succeeds. It's a Mexican standoff. For a moment, nobody is even beginning to type up a response. If we go through with this, there's a good chance both Seraph and Drake could die. I don't want either of them to die, goddammit. Plus, I've always been bound by the rules of cool. So fuck it. I throw my weapon to the ground. Come on, Seraph. Drop this midlife crisis bullshit. This is fun. It always has been. If you really want it to end like this, let's play one last time. I narrate Drake getting into a playful but almost comically karate-style fighting pose. Something to remember me by. I expect Hawk to go for this. Seraph and Drake have been in a fist fight before. It was by far one of the best moments we ever had on this 40. This could be a repeat of that. A tiebreaker. Well, not a tiebreaker since we weren't tied. I beat her ass last time, but still. I wait for her response. I get hype. It comes in no time at all.
No.
Seraph lowers her aim. Attempts to shoot out my kneecaps. Gets the roll. At this point, Skirt makes a post about getting the fuck out of there. Presumably not comfortable with the levels of character death that we are en route to reaching. All I can do is narrate myself falling to one knee. Crippling shot comes with one turn stun, unless you succeed an extremely high willpower roll. Which of course I do not. And after a luck roll to determine how far exactly I threw Skirt's SMG, we established that it's too far to reach for. At least not without Seraph getting opportunity fire. There's nothing I can do. She wasn't playing by the rules. You might be expecting some incredible last-minute turnaround. After all, why would I bother posting this story if it ended like this? Well, prepare yourselves. Bad men don't get happy endings. Unable to resist, and taken off guard by Hawk's mercilessness, Seraph knocks me unconscious with an abrupt smack from the butt of her rifle. Hawk shifts back to storyteller mode, turning his attention to Archer and the others. I am forced to sit through 6 turns of my crewmates struggling to fight back against an overwhelming vast force. They were intended as a distraction, not a real assault team. But they were also told to hold position until the loot was extracted. Faye is the first to go. She finally wakes up, charges right back out into the thick of it, gets mowed down by 3 separate volleys of opportunity fire. Archer's next. He gets in a sniping contest with a few enemy sharpshooters. He wins the first one, loses the second. Zion doesn't even try to run. After Archer's death, her only post is a vivid description of her breaking down and crying on the floor. Hawk wasn't cruel enough to explicitly tell us that the goons killed her, but she was gone either way. Their story was over. And now, the final chapter of my story would begin. When Drake finally regains consciousness, I find myself in the only place I can rightly expect to be. A prison transport. En route to the most high-security facility in the galaxy. Hawk describes the depressingly clean interior. Possibly the only time I've ever remembered a part of a typical setting description. The spotless white walls are almost offensive to your bloodshot eyes, daring to pretend that any part of this is clean. She describes a stocky, bald guy sitting in the seat opposite mine, looking me up and down. "You're that pirate guy they snatched, ain't you?" At this point, I'm posting my response. I realize that my writing style itself has completely changed. I am depressed as fuck, and I didn't even realize it until I started to type. "Yeah, guess I am." "Well, I hear you had a good run, anyhow. Hear a lot of things. Me. Guards like to gossip. First time getting carded?" "Yup." "Shame about your crew, huh?" I already knew that they died out of character, but now, Drake knew. My description became half-assed. Drake had no response. The chain of responses began to trail out from there. I think Hawk had done his duty as a storyteller just fine, but even knowing that, nobody could pretend to be happy with it. Even Hawk seemed disheartened by his own actions. There was a silence. I left the forum for an hour or so, feeling a little overwhelmed. Had a few drinks, listened to some pathetically depressing music. When I finally came back, I saw that there was almost a dozen new responses. Hawk playing a seraph. It was a bizarre thing to read. Since nobody else was playing anymore, he was essentially talking to himself. It began in her private quarters, signing paperwork relating to the funerals of all the men who died, making the ambush look convincing. Then, focus shifted to what she was thinking. At first, it was self-congratulatory, affirmation, but it felt empty. Then it transitioned to denial.
Maybe he's escaped. People break out of those transports all the time. Maybe Scudder had a change of heart and broke him out.
Then she began to break down. She started to remember all those times when, even though we were on opposing sides, we forged temporary alliances. The times we fought with smiles on our faces. Games we played. It culminated, finally, in a naked, internal confession of love. A love that was never really explored or justified, but she knew to be requited all the time. I didn't cry reading this, but I came so fucking close. For the longest time, I wanted that delicious happy ending. The ending where Seraph joins the crew and they fuck the night away. And the void between that ending and the one I got was too wide. And then I remembered something. Skurrit's character ability. Character ability. Character ability. Both me and Hawk, maybe everybody else, too, had forgotten. After all, I'd never used it. I'd only ever maybe looked at it 3 times at a stretch, counting the times I fucking wrote it. And I disregarded it as worthless since I was so inexperienced and clueless when I came up with it. But I remember it now. Drake's character ability. Escapist. I honestly can't remember the exact rulings. All I know is that they motherfucking applied. In situations like this, Drake got a unique escapist roll. A difficulty of 10 on a 20-sided die. A 50-50 chance. Nigga, fuck dice. I walk downstairs. I get a coin. And I flip that shit. Now I have to ask myself one question. Even if Drake slipped his cuffs, would he make it out? I could ask Hawk to create an arc for it. I could do that. I'm not going to do that. What kind of faggot would do that? This day, this moment, this is the end of the story. All I can do now is add one more sentence at the bottom. Hawk is offline. I type up a response anyways. A low, rumbling hum can be heard outside Seraph's window. A curious sound which appears both familiar and implausible. Hawk comes back the next day. I was up all night waiting for this. He lurks in the thread for a good half hour. I like to think he's just sitting there, mouth agape. He's probably wondering why the fuck I'm still posting. Eventually the response comes. Seraph wipes her tear-stained cheeks, stands up, opens her curtains. My turn. Captain Drake, sitting on his ship. On his ship. As in the motherfucking exterior. As it floats in place, hovering just outside her window. Lousy, bottom-tier proton blasters aim squarely at her forehead. Low damage, but enough to kill with a headshot. There is a pause. Hawk finally responds. Seraph smiles warmly.
You win.
There is a pause. I respond. Nah. Drake lets the gun drop out of his hand, plummet through the air.
Game's already over.
Stands up on the ship's exterior. Just a little something to remember me by. Climbs back into his ship. Flies off into the literal sunset. I don't wait for a reply. Account settings. Delete account. Confirm. Because no matter how long I stuck around, no matter how many arcs I played through, no matter how long I tried to drag the game on for, there would never be a better time for me to leave than that exact moment.
Be me. Be senior in high school. 2 sophomore friends of mine decide that they want to start a campaign of D&D with me. A petite Asian freshman girl, who was overly clingy and I was not having any of it, and 2 spurgs. Get told they need a mage and they want me to be as ruthless as possible. Get an evil idea for my ultimate mage. I create an abomination, known only as the Shad Mage. One of the spurgs and one of the sophomores knows who Shadman is. They look at me like I'm fucking retarded.
The Shad Mage? What do you plan on giving him magic-wise?
The Asian asked. The sophomores, we'll call them Tommy and Jensen from now on, made the game as easy as possible due to the Asian being a newcomer, and them wanting a piece of that ugly SJW ass, so take the next part with a giggle. I plan on giving him the power to manipulate gender and time, I announce triumphantly, much to the Jensen and Orksburg's obvious chagrin, and to the Asian's immediate glee. Tommy, our DM, allows this, and our game begins not long after. Jensen is a half-elf paladin. Asian, we'll call her Sarah's character, was a human sage. Monk, but she wanted to call it a sage. And there was Orksburg, hunter, and Mansburg, warrior. Our quest for the unholy treasure of Akbal begins. In the beginning, I allow the physical attackers to handle all the encountered enemies, while me and Sarah provide support. This tactic came to a screeching halt upon fighting the second boss, a guardian lich, who was unfazed by physical weapons.
Shad Mage, Alexa, Sarah, we need you two to handle this thing. We can't,
Jensen says, irritated at the lack of effort we've put in so far. I shrug. All right, I've got this. I roll to gender bend. My table looks at me like I'm a fucking idiot. Oh, okay then, Tommy says. Roll for it. Roll a 17 and the lich now grows a rack and ass, which immediately weighs it down, bringing a chuckle out of everyone but Sarah. Is that all? Mansburg asks, but I shake my head. Next, I roll to reverse age, to prepubescence. My table gets excited and nervous all at once, knowing my current plan. Oh, good God, you better not be doing what I think you are. Roll it. Natural fucking 20. Pick the lichling up and bring it to the edge of the woods we were in. Then I give it to a pack of nearby wolves, forcefully ending the fight. Half of our team is dying of laughter, and the other half is appalled at my actions. Despite this, the quest for Akbal's unholy treasure continues on, all while eating leftover takeout, like pick-related. Near the end of the campaign, infighting begins over who's getting the treasure. The only person who nobody argues with is me, in fear of being turned into a lolly and left to the animals, like the last 3 bosses. They settle on me getting 25% and the rest of them splitting 20% each. I rebuke any request to share any more, as I am the god of lolly magic, the unending source of medieval child murder, the Shad Mage of myth. We continue on and face our final boss, Cerberus and its master, Akbal himself.
Welcome to my lair.
Akbal, Tommy, shouts.
You've fallen right into my trap. Filthy heathens. No magic nor weapon can slay my beast. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
Akbal raises a magic shield that disables magic crossing it, but isn't affecting physical attacks.
My shield will eternally protect me and my behemoth. Fear me.
He shouts once more, looking down from the back of the beast. Tommy was sick of me finishing fights the moment they start, and I was determined to ruin it for him, fully. Our paladin and sage begin their assault, the sage protecting my paladin while he stuck the beast with his unholy claymore, which he dubbed Pence the Lightning. Mansburg and Orksburg run together, preparing to attack it head-on. I sit back, and I wait for a chance. "Anon, it's your turn," Tommy said. What are you gonna do? Your magic won't affect them." I roll to age. My party looks at me once again confused. Age what? You can't reach either of them. I grin. Not them. The shield. I roll to age the shield. Tommy sighs. Fine. Roll it. Get it over with. It's a fucking 2. DM laughs his ass off, before saying, "You accidentally age Mansburg and Orksburg into old men." They look at me, visibly enraged. Oh, fuck's sake, .jpg. My team gets the shit kicked out of them, and it begins to my turn again, with the Cerberus preparing to attack me. I roll to age the shield once more. Team prepares for the worst. 19. My face went. Still have an action left due to the perk I picked up early on. Next, I roll to gender bend Cerberus. Roll 17. To end, I yell, "Down, bitch!" at Cerberus for a taunt. Entire party's sides enter orbit at this point. Turns pass, but my party still isn't faring well. Time to end this. Anon, let me guess. Double age roll? How'd you know? First is for Cerberus child, second is for Akbal child. Roll a 14, then a 1. Cerberus turns into a 3-foot, tri-headed puppy, who begins to lick Alexa. Akbal, on the other hand, is turned into a young adult, giving him even more power.
Oh.
He begins to shout at me.
I am a god. A god.
Paladin just rolled to impale. Whispers, "Natural 20, bitch," in Akbal's ear, as he dies from impalement. Armor didn't fit. .gif. Akbal finally dies, and our quest is complete. All that's left is the treasure. We open the chest, and within it lies a red crystal. A single red crystal. Oh, fuck. Pick-related was me, at that very moment. This went from a well-knit team to a soon-to-be bloodbath. Even Sarah, who had been hitting on me through the entire campaign, was giving me a death stare. I begin by moving away from the fight, letting the Spurgs kill each other while Sarah and Jensen fought each other. It took them a few turns to notice me, but when they did, they prepared for assault. Fuck this .iso rolls to age them both into children and succeeds on only the paladin. Then I punt him to the top of the palace, killing him. It's just me and Sarah, 2 equally powerful magicians, one of good and one of evil. Sarah cast a seal on herself. No shields? Okay then. Too stupid to notice the trap, I cast Genderbend. The seal has a reflect seal. Well, fuck. Shadmage is now a chick with bigger tits than the caster. Alexa casts Seduction. Fuck, this might be the end. Sarah rolls and... 1. She seduces herself to the first thing she sees. Me. Make out, and shimmy till I reach the edge of the palace. Proceed to kick her off, 300 style. My face when I killed Akbal, my party, and took in the Cerberus pup, along with my jewel. My face when I ended the journey with a massive bloodbath. My face when the entire table hates me now. My face when I lost out on Asian pussy for D&D. It was fucking worth it. I am the god of lolly magic. I am the Shadmage. Gather around, for I shall tell you a story of horror and derailment that has changed my life forever. A few months ago, we were starting a new game of a freeform RPG we created to introduce people from V to more tabletop-like gameplay. It was nothing complex, but it helps bring in certain elements to those who are interested in traditional games, but not quite ready to play a complex system. This game was to introduce new players to the system, and so we had a crop of new recruits. Then a guy, playing a character called Brolair, joined. Now, our games aren't all that serious, we like to keep them fun, but we do try and have a certain semblance of sanity to stop things from devolving into an inevitable clusterfuck of stupidity. However, we do allow actions of a certain degree of awesome happen should the player roll extremely high. Unfortunately for everyone involved, Brolair must have been the chosen of the dice gods. The first thing he decided to do was attack a door upon the basis that it was a foul demon as it was talking. Except the door wasn't talking, there was just a person on the other side asking what the group of adventurers was doing here. Well, after this glimpse of things to come, the group is escorted up to a tower to meet their employer for their quest. A wealthy noble is looking for his daughter, who disappeared during a trip to a nearby city. Being the good people that we are, our heroes take it upon themselves to retrieve this man's daughter. This does not go quite to plan. By now our plucky band of heroes has reached the city without incident and are searching for information about the possible whereabouts of the daughter. This takes the form of Brolair intimidating anyone within distance with frightening effectiveness. We use this opportunity to introduce a new player who just joined. Brolair proceeded to intimidate him for information despite the fact that he knew he would not know. The new player responds to this with a punch. Because Brolair put all of his attribute points into resistance, the punch deflected off his chin and broke his hand. With their newfound companion, complete with broken hand, they made their way to a traveling circus which was in town. It was rumored that the noble young woman was last seen there. The adventurers were intercepted by a pair of mages, played by 2 more players. We had many people online at the time, whom were tasked with stopping them from digging too deep. The mages were a powerful duo who would work together, and they were giving the party a hard time. One of the members was incapacitated, and they had dealt out quite a bit of damage. However, reckless magic is not suitable for fighting inside a circus tent, and it quickly caught ablaze. Everyone began to head for the exits, except for a single person, Brolair. For reasons that will remain forever unknown, he did something that made no sense whatsoever. He intimidated a burning, falling tent. We used a D100 system in this game, with rolls of 90 and upwards being critical fails and those under 10 being criticals. He rolled a 1 to intimidate a tent. Well, that tent decided it wasn't going to be on fire anymore. Everyone was understandably flabbergasted to find a burning circus tent rising back up into the air and extinguishing itself on its own accord. The mages used this opportunity to escape, but a dumbfounded slaver was still within the tent. He turned to leave the tent before Brolair had the brilliant idea of throwing a ball of dirt at the man to somehow stop him. With a roll in the mid-90s. All Brolair accomplished was to throw dirt over the entire party and let the man escape. Feeling rather foolish at letting their lead get away, Brolair proceeded to intimidate time. He intimidated an intangible cosmic force into rewinding itself so he could throw a dirt ball at the fleeing slaver. Of course he rolled a 1. Well, time decided it would just do that, and the party was flung a few seconds into the past. Brolaire proceeded to do the exact same as he had before, rolling poorly again on the throw, and covered everyone in dirt, letting the slaver escape. Luckily, a hero with more sense stumbled upon a hidden entrance within the tent to another room in their dirt-covered confusion. The room was filled with hundreds of caged young women, a slave market for girls forced into prostitution by criminals and thugs. A room filled with crying, half-naked, beautiful women. You can guess where this is heading. 2 rolls later, and the entire force of slavers was routed through intimidation, and every single female in the room was swooned for Brolaire, whom rolled a 1 on his seduction check. I should point out that Brolaire had the minimum possible value for his social attribute, meaning that every successful roll was under 10. With hundreds of thankful women now craving to pleasure their savior, the party was able to locate the nobleman's daughter among the teeming masses of scantily clad females. Mission accomplished. Now all they had to do was bring her back to her father in one piece. This would not be an easy task, as they were being followed by a large group of women. To rectify this, Brolaire chose to intimidate every single one of them. Yep, he created that one too. With that problem dealt with, the party began their journey back to the nobleman's tower. This was made harder as they were having to drag the unconscious body of Brolaire with them, for he decided to intimidate himself into a coma so he could have a break. After being waylaid by a native tribe of savages, the rest of our heroes fought against large numbers of screaming tribesmen and came out victorious, albeit heavily wounded. With the immediate danger dealt with, Brolaire intimidated himself back out of his self-induced coma so that the party would not miss his shining influence. Not much of note transpired on the rest of the journey back. Brolaire decided to finish off what he had started several hours ago and destroyed the tower door he had damaged. The head butler was not very pleased with the wanton destruction of a tower's entrance, but stayed himself from sending away upon seeing the young daughter of his master. Our heroes brought her before her father and reunited them, earning the thanks of a powerful lord in the area. He offered them any gift that was in his ability to give. The more prudent members of the group asked for weapons, armor, or gold, the usual adventuring kit. Brolaire asked for his daughter's hand in marriage. 1 roll later, we have a thoroughly seduced daughter of a thoroughly angry nobleman. He refused the request, for he did not want his daughter to be married to a reckless and rather insane adventurer. The nobleman demanded that the other members of the party stop their comrade from stealing away his precious daughter, and the reason they went on this adventure. One of the more sane heroes decided to apprehend Brolaire as to appease his new lord. This proved rather difficult, for Brolaire decided to intimidate time repeatedly so to escape unscathed without fail. Yes, he made every single roll. The dice gods really do choose odd champions. In an act of desperation, a few of the party members combined their magic to form a large bomb of spiritual energy and launched it at Brolaire in order to slay him for good. It seemed that they had enough of his spotlight-stealing antics. They rolled a 2. He rolled a 1. Well, now, this was just too much for reality to handle. The dice gods had clearly spoken. Brolaire can and will intimidate anything he feels like. That spirit bomb, summoned by several powerful heroes together, gone, intimidated out of existence. Nobody could believe what had happened. It just did not make sense. How could one man be so lucky with his rolls that he was able to fuck with the laws of physics? I don't know. The DM didn't know. The game universe didn't know. In response to sheer luck, reality itself decided to just go along with whatever Brolaire wanted. He was granted a wish. Now, for all of his faults, Brolaire really did just want one thing. That was to have adventures with bros. With a somewhat unexpected show of unity from a group of people who were trying to kill each other, the heroes bumped their fists together upon the insistence of Brolaire. This brofist was what he wished for. The world we created for our little free-form game wasn't quite the same after that fateful brofist. A new plane of existence was created, where adventurers would live on after death in endless adventures of brotherly companionship. For such an incredibly unlikely turn of events, Brolaire was defied as new ruler of his spirit realm, which he dubbed Brohalla. And that is where our clusterfuck of a tale ends. Here's to you, Brolair. You ruined everything. In the nicest way. Be the party's cartographer. DM won't let us see his copies of the maps he makes. One of us has to draw it ourselves, and he tells us if we've missed something important / made a mistake. Rogue. DM. This session is all about breaking into a lich's lair, so there's going to be a lot of undead and constructs. Well, fucking goddammit. Lich is a self-proclaimed traditionalist. His lair is a gaudy tower built into a mountain with permanent thunderstorms raging around it, for instance. We learn that because every lair needs a secret back entrance. The idiot installed one that he doesn't even keep guarded. Me. It's a trap? Everyone else. I don't think it's a trap. We find and sneak in. Of course it's a fucking trap. The Lich kindly informs us that we are trespassing and we must complete his gauntlet if we wish to survive. Shit tons of trap and explosions. Most of the party heavily damaged, but I mostly get out unscathed thanks to my roguish reflexes. Somehow we manage to survive. Lich says we can leave if we want. Fuck that, we're here to kill Lich. Roam around the Lich's tower, avoiding traps and nasties all along the way. Be drawing up the map the whole time. The tower is built so that each level prongs out to 4 rooms the whole way up. Eventually we find the phylactery room, completely adjacent to the treasure room. The rest of the party checks out the phylactery room while being dick-ass rogue I run for the treasure. Take as much of it as I can grab. DM rolls some dice and writes a list of things I picked up. A lot of it is magic items earned from Legend of Zelda. Keep that to myself to avoid getting on DM's bad side. Meanwhile, on the other side of the level, the party steps into the phylactery room and instantly trigger a trap I was supposed to find. Party already heavily damaged from the gauntlet. Party goes down like a rock. Lich realizes that, oh no, my phylactery is in danger, and comes down to see what the fuck is going on. See the party all incapacitated, then notices me taking all of his shit. Party down. Only the rogue left to face with a Lich. Everyone accepts that we're about to experience a TPK. The Lich starts flinging spells at me while I keep dodging and avoiding like a tricky little fuck. Run up the stairs, hoping to find some way to escape. Quickly look over the list of items I've stolen from the Lich. Notice boots that will allow the wearer to run incredibly fast at the cost of not being able to turn. A grappling hook, a shield that reflects magical projectiles, and a cloak that allows the wearer to jump super high. Yeah, Legend of Zelda. Quickly throw the cloak over my shoulders, using it and the grappling hook to ascend the tower as quickly as I can, putting as much distance between me and the Lich as possible. Eventually have enough time to pull off one of my current boots and pull on one of the Pegasus boots. Another player jokingly asks, "Have you been drawing the map as you run up the stairs?" Completely forgot about the map, taking a look at when I last updated it. At the phylactery room. Light bulb. Tell the DM I run down the stairs. Everyone assumes I've gotten bored and I'm going suicidal. Lich sees me and instantly tosses a spell at me. Deflect it with a shield, directing it to a wall. DM thinks he knows what I'm up to and tells me that the wall crumbles away, making a hole to the outside, and that using the grappling hook I could probably escape. I say that I used the boots to make a beeline past the Lich and further down the stairs. DM is confused. Lich continues the chase, saying he's getting bored of this, throwing spell after spell at me. I constantly deflect the spells with my shield, thanking the gods that the DM hasn't decided to use one with an AoE or something. Constantly tell the DM I'm reflecting the shield at the walls, and he tells me I'm making more holes in them. Eventually I reach the floor with the phylactery. I use the grappling hook to pull my party closer to me. DM thinks I'm trying to save the team. Lich throws a spell at me, and I deflect it at the phylactery room walls. DM says that, once again, it creates a sizable hole. So the room containing the phylactery isn't protected by magic. Interesting. DM once again thinks he knows what I'm up to and says the Lich notices his phylactery is exposed and won't throw his next spell. Feina, damn it, as the Lich charges at me, hoping to use touch spells instead. Continue down the stairs. Every now and then I use the grappling hook/cloak to quickly ascend up the stairs instead. Down, down, up, up, down, up, up, down. down, up, down, down. Making notes on the map each time. Halfway through, DM starts with the ranged spells again. I keep dodging instead of deflecting. Eventually, I decide to stop running through the staircase and duck into one of the rooms on the floor I'm on. Eventually, the DM has gotten bored, says that I'm cornered, nowhere to run or hide, as the Lich prepares an incredibly powerful spell. And while I don't know what it is, it'll most definitely wipe out whatever it hits. Lich throws the spell right at me. I tell the DM I deflect it with the magic shield at the roof. DM groans in frustration. Seems he's forgot about the shield. DM. Fine. The spell launches up at the roof of the room, blasting it, and the room is in destroying whatever was in there. He then says that the shield breaks, having been pushed to its limits as the Lich prepares another spell. No, he doesn't. What? He can't do that? Why not? I'm the DM. Because he just destroyed his phylactery. What? I showed the DM the map. Every time I had gone up and down a floor, I drew a line marking my current location. My current location was the floor directly below the phylactery floor. In the room directly below the phylactery. DM stares at the map silently for a moment. One of the few party members still paying attention goes, "Holy shit," getting the rest of the group's attention back. "Hey, nah, just killed the Lich." Party quickly comes back to the table and I explain what I just did. Wait, weren't we in that room? Nope, I pulled you out when I first ran into the room, remember? I say to the DM. DM says that the Lich realizes in horror what he had done and lets out a loud scream as he slowly crumbles away into dust. Party cheers. The session is finally over. Everyone fucks off and lets me get to sleep. Well, the BBEG for the game was an LE king turned tyrant, being backed up by the god of tyrants, a long-forgotten god, which basically meant that he wasn't worshipped actively. But anyone who was a tyrant counted as a worshipper of his, despite worshipping other gods. So he got auto-cleric levels. The game was all about Osmar and I, going to this new, unknown country, to try and spread the word of our religion at the start, until we realized their king was a dickhead of the greatest magnitude. At which point Osmar got disgruntled by the evil in the air around him and decided that he was going to turn this country around. And the rest of us were along for the ride on the righteous tidal wave that was Osmar. After many epic adventures, the game comes to a climax with a revolt led by Osmar, me and the ranger assassin in the capital city, which pretty much failed. We were stuck behind a barricade, with the king's men raining hell down on us for days on end, us giving almost as good as we get. There's too many of them. You know how it works. When Osmar sees the king watching from the sidelines, and bellows a challenge for leadership of the country at him. One of the king's laws was that you could challenge anyone for anything. Might makes right. Now his entire army hears this challenge, and obviously they know he can't back down from it. Then the king says,
Sure, whatever. Get my fucking huge sword and armor and let's do this. Then your entire revolt in mine, and it's off to the ball-twisting implements with you all. Even the women.
Circle is drawn in neutral ground. The two parties meet, with ex-Blackguard as Osmond's second, and the king's general as his second. Now the thing about this king and his relationship with the god is, he was the last tyrant alive at this time, and if there are no worshippers of a forgotten god, you're gone for good, and a new one will appear when and as they are needed. And Osmar is a fucking good fighter. So this god is shitting enough bricks to build New York. He tells the king to cheat, takes over him, and puts on a few poisoned rings. When he shakes Osmar's hand, schwink, -10 to strength and con, as well as being blinded and a few other mixed statuses in the form of liquid curses. Osmar's greatest abilities, down the drain. Before Osmar can call out this treachery, the king smacks him in the gob with his pommel and the fight begins. Osmar does his best, but needless to say, he's getting fucked up bad. When the God King makes his mistake all tyrants make, he starts gloating. He starts going on about
the weak are pathetic and don't deserve protection.
about how
Men are wolves, and here's the biggest motherfucking alpha wolf there is.
About how
Good, stupid, honors, restraint, and respect as others is pathetic and shit.
Osmar is annoyed at the puny man dissing on his principles. Osmar pulls a trick we've not seen in months of leveling, because he never needed it. Osmar, righteous rages. Feat kicks in, results are rolled, tables brought out. Osmar is healed, back on full health, basically sweats the poison out and gives off a bellow that sends half the king's men running away with liquid fear running down the insides of their legs. A man possessed by God itself stumbles at his bellow, this roar of anger against the sheer injustice of the world, and the fury against the darkness he and the man he possessed represent. That malicious evil that thinks it can get away with the things because good men won't fight back, or aren't smart enough to fight them. And then Osmar brings up his weapon, and stands over the fallen king for a moment, before saying 5 words. Get up, and face me. He waits until his opponent stands, and then swings his club into him, breaking his entire shield arm in one hit as he tries to protect himself. The king screams out to his troops to fire on the battlefield. They do so. Osmar asks the GM if he can roll Divine Intervention. He fails, but uses a once-a-day item to roll twice, and passes. The arrows and bolts stop in midair. The general tries to enter the arena and is boiled in his armor by the fire of the line that surrounds them, effectively disintegrating him in his suit as the god of fair battle himself looks down on this betrayal of his greatest warrior and goes,
No, this shall be a fair battle.
Osmar brings his weapon in again, and drives the crowned helmet so deep into the man's head that it can never be removed from the body of the armor again, then stands, bellowing in the circle. The god of tyrants tries to escape, taking no physical form, but Osmar grapples and starts hitting it using Smite Evil, literally holding and beating on a dying god down in the dueling ring using nothing but the force of his own righteousness and hatred of evil, and punches it in its evil face until it stops spasming and finally disperses away. Osmar was now king. Osmar took the crown that his new generals offered him, and looked at it, and then nodded and said, I'm not smart enough to be a king. Osmar gave this away to his church, creating a council of 12 members, 6 clergymen, 6 randomly chosen peasants who each served for a maximum time. And he went back to the road. When asked why turn down this great offer? This chance to be a king and have everything he wanted? He answered, Because I do not need it. I have all I wish here. It is my place to fight evil face to face, not as a figurehead. I have evil before me, my weapon at my side, good and just friends to battle alongside, and the war eternal to battle in the name of my God. What more could make me happy? Osmar then moves on, with us all being dragged along in his wake. What happens next, I don't know.
Here's how the campaign went for my poor janitor. The entire party meets up through a series of increasingly bizarre circumstances. We're all Force-sensitive and flying an earlier model of Han Solo's type of cargo runner. Slower, but with more cargo space. The setting is the Rebellion. The last party member to show up on the ship is a Jedi who's been running from the Empire since the fall of the Republic. He thinks that the Force has brought us all together, and begins training us in the ways of space samurai. Well, everyone except me. I have too many mundane duties that keep me from training. One of the members of the party, a spoiled rich bitch, decides that she wants someone to spar against using the newfound magic powers. Her character keeps pushing the Jedi, trying to toy around with the dark side without being serious, kitty-type shit. She sees my character going over a cargo manifest and decides that this is the perfect time to bring him into the fold. She immediately begins attempting to command me to join her in her sparring. I am politely refusing, stating that I have work to do. My character turns to walk away, and she attacks me from behind. I did not handle it well. My character lashed out, and the DM ruled that because I was angry and just wanted her to go away, I unknowingly called on the dark side. Her body left an imprint on the bulkhead behind her. but she was still alive. The Jedi feels the use of the dark side and runs to see my character trying to wake up the noble while freaking out. The Jedi heals her up and my character is confined to his quarters. The party debates killing me until the Jedi says that I can be redeemed and gives me a
You're special, but don't be the wrong kind of special
pep talk. They confiscate my blaster, release me, and nothing more is said of the situation. Noble doesn't even get a slap on the wrist for antagonizing me and attacking me unawares. Thus begins my character's swift slide into the dark side. Being attacked by a Force user had cleared my perspective a bit. The Jedi, it seemed to me, were just as big of bullies and thugs as the Empire, and all their pseudo-philosophical bullshit was a smokescreen to hide the truth from the public. Some that was the dark side talking. As the campaign went on, the party had a habit of leaving me at the ship while they confronted whatever they wanted. If I left the ship, it was in well-guarded ports, and I'd be searched for weapons when I returned. The GM, thinking that the party were taking one accident a bit too seriously, began to conspire with me. I'd always get 30 minutes of his time a session, where it was just the things I'd do without the party. We'd talk about supply purchases, and paint cans, and going to bars. We'd also pass a lot of notes between us. The notes were the important part. I'd detail exactly how I was smuggling weapons and materials on the ship, and where I was hiding them on board. They never caught me. I began privately shipping highly illegal things between the ports we went to, and using the profit to find out everything I could about the Force, the Jedi, and this thing I'd never heard of before called the Sith. I also discovered a way to suppress my Force abilities so the party couldn't sense them. While the party was growing into capable Jedi, I was learning everything I could about the Force, and different cultures' take on it. The party just assumed that I had accepted my role as support and was going to step out of the way and let the big boys handle the dangerous stuff. I may have helped them reach this conclusion. Well, after about a year in-game, the party comes across a conspiracy being led by a Sith who isn't the Emperor. Our ship is attacked by some of his minions who are low-strength Dark Force users. The party triumphs easily in a boarding action. While the party is fighting, I slip off into the bowels of the other ship. I find the captain's room and search it for clues. There, I find an almost completed lightsaber and a heavily damaged Sith holocron. I swipe both of them, disable the other ship's engine, and return before anyone realized I had left. So, we're back to the ship. This ship, full of righteous do-gooders who think their shit don't stink. After a year of living with Jedi, and the casual arrogance they display because of their powers, the holocron was a godsend, even in the state I was in. I managed to download a massive amount of information into several network data pads I had hidden above a light fixture in my room. The holocron itself I launched out of an airlock, so no one could find it. I had the information I needed. While the rest of the party chased leads, fought incredible battles, my character was still only let off the ship to buy supplies and move cargo. Even with the quest going on, I had argued that we needed the cargo to cover the ship's expenses. Except this time, there was no smuggling or information gathering. I would buy the supplies and then spend the rest of the time putting into applications the things I learned from the holocron. Anatomy lessons? No one will miss that, Twilight girl. Practicing the Force? Set up a gang war by murdering the leader of one of the gangs and blaming it on the other. My powers of persuasion had become considerable. I finished everything I needed for my lightsaber. Everything I needed to learn about lightsaber combat I learned by secretly recording the Jedi while they trained, going over the tapes and seeing their weaknesses. My party thought I didn't know how to use anything larger than a pistol. I should mention that no one in the party, even the original Jedi, had any inkling I was other than the mechanic/janitor. They would confront me about it IRL, asking if I was having fun or if I wanted to make a new character. I'd say no, that being this guy was actually a great time for me, and it was a change of pace to be a spectator to the legendary events instead of a participant. 6 more months game time go by. The Jedi, who at this point were getting stupidly powerful, had finally discovered where the leader of this conspiracy was hiding out. His goal, it seemed, was to kill the Emperor and claim the title of Sith Lord, as well as a dominion over the galaxy. Of course, they raced to stop him. We get to the hideout of the BBEG. The party actually takes me with them, giving me a blaster cannon and a short speech about staying away from the main fighting, I accept, and tell them that even though I'm not like them, I'll try my best to make an impact. I exit the ship with a data pad, the blaster cannon, and a small backpack. The party gets a little chuckle on how silly my character looks. I was a short, slim human male who was beginning to go bald and had a belly I could never get rid of. I looked a bit like a shorter version of Dale from King of the Hill. The battle is engaged. The party is fighting mercenaries, battle droids, and Dark Force users in an all-out melee. I'm standing in the back, shooting at the bigger things with my cannon. The party mops up the minions pretty easily. When the fighting's over, the building they're looking at collapses. Standing in front of it is the BBEG and 5 of his elite guards. We had 6 party members, so it matched up. The party and the BBEG get into what I can only term as a monologue off. The BBEG would say something inane about evil, and one of the Jedi would counter them with a short speech of his own, and it was all very Dragon Ball Z-esque. And it lasted 3 hours of real time. When they all finally run out of cringeworthy cliches, the final battle begins. Lightsabers and force powers are on display like it's the 4th of July. Lightning is shooting everywhere, and chunks of masonry are floating about at high velocities. I put down my cannon and begin tapping into my datapad. This datapad was interesting. I'd spent a lot of money upgrading its hardware, as well as giving it a remote connection to the ship's systems. The party had spent a lot of time upgrading the ship. It was their baby. Upgrading engines, redundancy systems, and more weapons than you could shake a womp rat at. They also relied on their patient mechanic to install all of these systems. The remote access capability of the datapad essentially made the ship operate by remote control. I moved out of the way, and had all the ship's weapons unload into the fight. The entire party stops what it's doing and looks at me, out of game. I poker-faced a lot of them and said, "What, you wanted me to help?" The 3 of the Jedi die, and all the elite guards die. The 2 remaining Jedi, thinking that I've done all of heavy lifting for them, turn to the BBEG and start to advance on him. He starts blubbering about how they aren't supposed to kill him because they're Super Sentai Space Jedi. That's when the DM looks at them and goes, "When you all get up, 6 feet from the BBEG, you hear the distinctive sound of a lightsaber activating behind you." They turn around and see my character holding a red lightsaber with a sneer on his face. God, I hate you people. While it was still my turn, I shoved the lightsaber through the rich bitch's chest. She was one of the survivors. All that's left are the original Jedi, me, and the BBEG. The Jedi looks at me in character and attempts to start a speech. The DM lets him go for 10 seconds and then has the BBEG force lightning him in the back. The Jedi was already injured from the earlier fights and the ship-based weaponry, and folds like a bad poker hand. While I'm still looking at the Jedi's body, the BBEG stands up, dusts himself off, and starts talking about how I should join him. And he'll gladly share the galaxy with me, if I can help him kill the Emperor and his apprentice. I blast him up against the wall and cut off his arms with my lightsaber. 1.5 years. That is how long I had to play this game. 1.5 years of putting up with them, hiding, cringing, bowing and scraping, being the good little mechanic so they let me leave the ship. 1.5 years of dealing with arrogance, stupidity, and a blind sense of self-righteousness. All that kept me going that whole time was thinking about what I was going to do to them. All of them. When the time was right, you stole that from me. Give me back my 1.5 years. My character continued to yell things along that line, as I cut the BBG into smaller and smaller pieces, and scored the pieces with lightning. The party didn't talk to me for 3 months IRL. The DM finally convinced everyone to make up and sit down for a new campaign. The setting? A new Sith Lord has arisen, slain the Emperor. Lord Vader has pledged his support, and the Empire's winning against the rebels, having almost completely obliterated them. The party chose not to fight them. The end. Friend of mine is DM, says I always play dwarves. Try something else for once. I flip through the races. I don't play game very often, so I don't really know as much about the races as I should. Can't decide on something but don't want to be a dick and just say, I'm a dwarf, deal with it, faggot. Pick Warforged because at least then I have some decent stats to start off with. Realize I have no goddamn idea what I'm doing. Go Wizard because, fuck it, why not try something entirely new to humanity? Not just me. Friend looks at my sheet, rereads the race/class lines about 6 times, before looking up at me with a mix of doubt, confusion, and a mile less before deciding he wants to see where I'm going with this shit. Friend has a good point. He always makes, that when you make a character you have to decide on a motivation and tell the group. And he's that special breed that gives you a little bonus now and then for following that motivation. Hey Nan, why are you a Warforged wizard? Decide that as a baby. Warforged, I watched my mommy Warforged and daddy Warforged fighting all the time and didn't like it. They're monsters in my eyes. I wasn't afraid of fighting. I wanted to be a hero. I have a dream. I wanted to be a hero. And I wanted to fly. Table's unsure. Looks to DM for their reassurance. It's not quick in coming. Tell DM I will fuck about in the books, Aberon, etc. As long as it takes until I prove it's doable. And even if it's not, what's wrong with a dream that will never happen? A tragic character is just as thought-provoking as a Hithard McBeef smash. DM decides I have at least put some thought into my character and agrees. We start off in Sumfucksville, where they buy, sell, and trade in pig shit and incest. Immediately, I start to develop a plan for my character. While the party is helping rid the town of some midnight thief, which may or may not just have been a high-level rogue, I speak up when we're sitting at a table with the town's leader. Why would he steal from the poor people? If everyone's as poor as it seems around here, I think the only person worth robbing and the only person who would give a shit about around here is you. Seeing as this is the first meaningful thing my character has said in hours, the table is once again stunned. My character is swiftly gaining a reputation for being quiet. But when he speaks, you listen. This spirals out of control as the town leader gets increasingly butthurt at my innocent accusation. All the while the DM is starting to like my suggestion. We're asked to roll, and it seems like I might be right. At the very least, I've got the guy flustered. And I both have a more fluid method of story generation. We don't show up with pre-prepared books, instead a list of ideas, rough directions we want the story to go, stuff we can change on the fly. I get kicked out of a super special meeting, to no surprise. But once the party leaves, it turns out the guy is just as corrupt as it seems, and we decide to go find the masked thief. But we plan to help them if they can convince us their cause is just as I assumed. Long story short, that leads us to becoming bandits with a plucky thief by our side. We hide from the authorities wherever we can, fight them if we can't. Essentially, we have fun and steal from the rich, give to the poor. Eventually, a darker threat emerges. Turns out some necromancer wants to be a lich. My character is a joyfully innocent robot who will occasionally say something brutally naive, which leads to antics. When sneaking into Necromancer's lair, trying to bluff our way past the guards, it's not going well, and he's reaching for something. If we weren't the right people, would we really be trying to walk into the front door? He thinks for a moment and lets us in. Party can't believe our luck. While we're sitting in on their super secret church meeting, turns out the Necromancer, soon to be Lich, has a plan. Ancient artifact, which is basically a D&D version of a magic cruise missile. They're gonna go find it and launch it at a big city of nice people stand. Kill everyone, raise the dead, and have a party. We, being the good fight-for-right rebels without a cause, goody-two-shoes bandits we are, decide we're the only ones capable of stopping them in time. By the time we got to the city, they'd be up on the cliff, firing the damn thing. Necro intends to ascend to Lich status by using the power of artifact, yada yada yada, you know the drill. At this point, my robot has become the lovable idiot. While everyone else has lost the character, somehow my wizard survived. Final battle ensues. We have tagged along to the location, but the Necromancer knew we were spies the whole time. He just wanted us to witness the destruction before he killed us, made us into skeletons. At this point, I am a moderately powerful wizard. Blast all my shooty spells, start using what little I have left prepared. Beefy warriors dying, sorceress is dead. Other warriors beating things with a shield. All of a sudden, we realized we were on a timer. And we've run out of time. Necromancer cackles as he creates his phylactery and ascends the Lich status. Beefy Warrior 2 charges, but Lich just levitates. He launches the artifact. All the Lich's cronies just stand and watch in awe. Everyone is quiet. Warrior is on his knees in front of me. I place my hand on his shoulder, speak to him softly. You stay. I go. No following. Last time I leveled up, I got access to the spell I wanted, and told no one. Cast Fly. DM doesn't make me roll. Take off into the sky with the assistance of some minor artifacts, flying directly after the missile. Overtake it, and turn around, halfway between here and the city, which is just in the distance. Fly towards the artifact. Communicate my final thoughts to the warrior with my last spell. DM doesn't make me roll. He says it wouldn't be right to make me roll. My last words.
Taking a break from our more serious campaign hack.
Sorry about that. Taking a break from our more serious campaign. Tell them to make level 20 characters. They come in next week. Wonder to myself why they keep chuckling. They pass me their sheets. Bard. 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 Another bard. Players plan to bring an all-bard party to the campaign. Idea is that they're a metal band. Start to pull out new sheets after they've made their giggle. I stop them. Nah, man, we're doing this shit. The resulting campaign lasted only 4 weeks and ended in several destroyed cities, a lot of dead civilians, and an epic music battle that split the heavens and nearly destroyed the world from sheer metal. Best part is, out of the 5 of us, only one actually listens to metal, so all we were doing was playing Metalocalypse, Pathfinder Edition. Player 1, the dwarven drummer, bald, big red beard, and played the drums with warhammers. His drums were custom made, so he didn't break them with hammers. Had something like 6 intelligence. Player 2, half-orc vocalist, had black hair, no pupil in his left eye, and had a very deep and guttural voice. Think Nathan from Metalocalypse. Actually, heard later that Metalocalypse actually was what gave them the idea for the party. Player 3, half-elf bass player, had really long brown hair that covered his face. Not like that curtain hairdo that covers your eyes. The only part of his face you could see was his nose and ears sticking out from underneath. Had the highest intelligence in the party, and had a degree in arcane studies from the Mage University. Player 4, the human guitarist. Now, in a party like this, you may think a human would seem kind of plain compared to the others, and normally you'd be right. Except for one thing. The human was the craziest motherfucker in the bunch. The others would occasionally do crazy stuff like drink blood from a bat because it was metal. But this guy? This fucker would rip its head off, chug the blood, then eat the body and throw the head out for the crowd. The player wasn't edgy. He purposely made the character edgy because it was tongue-in-cheek metal. This is about mid-game. The band started off kind of famous, but now they're all the rage in this world. One night, after a particularly good concert, Nat 20, the front row, passed out from sheer metal overdose. The band gets a visit backstage from some cute girls, about 8 of them. The result is what you would expect from a party of level 20 bards. The next morning, after a fade to black, 3 of the party members wake up next to 2 girls from yesterday. Half-orc tells them,
You're still here? If I'm awake, you need to be gone.
I tell him, you try to speak, but nothing comes out. For you see, these groupies were all succubus. But rather than losing their souls or getting negative levels, they lost their ability to play music. That means the orc can't talk, the dwarf is too weak to lift his warhammers, and the human forgot how to play the guitar. Cue collective, oh shit. Succubi groupies laugh at them and reveal that they were hired by someone with a bad grudge against them. On his orders, they stole their ability to play music. Laughing succubi bitches.jpg. Leave them there to go check on their sisters who went with the half-elf. Pass note to half-elf player. He laughs. Others grab their weapons and run after them. Find the 8 standing dumbfounded outside the half-elf's door. He's sitting there, tuning his bass, like nothing happened. 2 succubi are in bed, looking very satisfied.
Sisters, what happened? Why can he still play?
We can't do it, sisters. He's too dreamy.
Half-elf looks up for the first time, just nods, and goes back to tuning his instrument. Meanwhile, the others decide now is as good of a chance as any to attack. Human grabs one by the collar and demands they return their talent.
Never! Not in a million years!
Half-elf gets up for the first time since the battle started. Tells the party he'll handle it. They leave, a bit confused. 30 minutes later they walk back in and find the half-elf tuning his bass while the succubi are all laying on the ground. Party's like, "Shit man, how'd you do it?" Shrugs, "I just pulled my hair out of the way so they could hear me better. Talked reason to them." "Wait, you just talked?" "Yeah, man. What else am I gonna do with a bunch of succubus ladies I barely know?" One of the almost passed out succubi.
He's so gorgeous.
The succubi end up returning their talent. They stay with the band for the rest of the campaign. No one ever finds out who sent them. No one ever cares. On the rare occasions the party needed to solve problems peacefully, the half-elf handled it from then on. The party has just become famous around the world. Tales of their unique brand of music spreads to every corner of the world. Thing is, those that haven't actually been to a concert don't really know what kind of music they're playing, just that they're very famous and very good. They get an invitation from the Elf Queen to play for her birthday party. Elves are expecting high-class maestros playing the lute or something like that. Instead, they find a bunch of grungy-looking guys kicking in the palace door and carrying these weird instruments. Elves decide to give them a chance, at least. Party sets up. Begin playing a very loud song that pretty much amounts to
"Burning trees, scorching land, murder, 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 murder."
I had a percent die with a chart I had ready to see what incidents they cause. Fucking 1. Which means everything on the chart happens. The song is so loud it shatters glass and blows back everyone's hair in the front row. All the windows shatter. The ice sculptures fall down and hit a table, launching the contents across the room. Food lands all over the queen and her nobles. Waiters walking past slip on the spilled food, and the plate he's carrying goes flying into the air. The platter gonks the assassin I had hiding in the rafters on the head. He falls head first and gets knocked out. The guards later carried him off. End of the song. The whole room is a disaster now. Looks like a tornado ran through. Backed up. Then ran through again. So, how did we do? Oh right, they were supposed to role perform. Got something over 30. The whole room is dead fucking silent. And then the queen starts to slow clap. Everyone joins in. The queen finds them later and tells them that was the best performance she'd ever heard. She later funds an academy for aspiring metal musicians. Metal becomes a favorite among elves. The band writes their new national anthem. After Succubus incident, but before final showdown with Crichton, the half-elf has been using his diplomacy a lot more now. Party is now curious, asks to see his face. Shrugs, moves his hair out of the way. Asks for will save. Everyone fails. I make it fade to black. Hours later, everyone wakes from being passed out. No one can remember what they saw, just that it was amazing. Later, everyone ran into the half-elf's family. They all were exactly the same, long hair so you couldn't see their face. And I made them roll a will save whenever they tried to look at their face. Except for his older sister. She was the only one without long hair. and she was ugly enough to give negative levels if you stared too long. She wore a bag over her head. Ben gets another invite for a concert. Pay is 3 million platinum. Takes place deep underground in a remote area, and the guy who gave them the invite is wearing a cloak, hunchbacked, and keeps cackling. Obviously suspicious, but they go anyways because most of them are fucking stupid IC. They get there, and there are about 20 other people there. Stage is already set. There's this weird sigil drawn around the stage. For atmosphere. Now the band is starting to realize this is kinda sketchy. They go anyways. Though when the cultists, I mean patrons, toss them a bag of 100 platinum up front. When they finish their song, the earth begins to rumble. Lightning begins to spark inside the cave. The patrons are all gasping and pointing. "He comes!" Suddenly, they hear the sound of hooves and guitar out of nowhere. Then, a dark figure breaks through the bottom of the stage and flies above them. The sounds of an atomic guitar echoes throughout the cave, and suddenly the cultists start dropping dead. The dark figure points his guitar at the roof, and a beam of dark energy flies from his guitar and clears a hole in the roof of the cave, which he flies out. The dwarf. "So, we're still getting paid, right?" Coughing mixed with laughter from a surviving cultist.
Money won't do you any good now. Our lord has returned.
Turns out their patrons were a death metal cult, and that dark figure was their god.
Soon, all will bow before Crichton, the lord of metal.
Long silence. Alright, let's go get our pay from that Crichton guy then. They head for the nearest town, thinking Crichton may have gone there. Sure enough, they see smoke in the distance. The town is burnt down. The townsfolk are all dead in the streets. Some smiling, some terrified, and some had their faces melted completely off. The sound of a guitar can be heard in the distance. Band investigates. There they see a man in heavy black armor, flying on a skeleton horse and playing a guitar. He also works as a greatsword. When they approach, he stops playing and turns to them. His red eyes stare coldly at them as they approach.
Who dares to approach Crichton, the lord of all that is metal?
The human steps forward. The new lords of metal. Now where's our platinum? Roaring laughter.
You peons are not worthy of the title. You are weak, your metal is weak, and you stand no chance against me.
Well, they react about as well as you would expect. Initiative is rolled. We home ruled in that game that armor didn't get in the way of Bard's spells, because this was just a short campaign we were doing for shits and giggles. The party was pretty tough despite being all Bards, but Crichton in his 20 strength, 28 charisma, and plus 44 perform absolutely swept them away. Band on the brink of death, Crichton steps over them and readies his guitar greatsword.
Weak. Now, listen to me as I play the songs of your deaths.
Crichton uses deadly performance. Everyone fails their saves. The band is dead. Suddenly, the band sees a light in the dark hallway. It gets closer and reveals the shape of a colossal dwarf in Viking garb, holding drumsticks. It is the god of metal, come before the band.
Listen well, my sons. You have done well in this world, but you are no match for Crichton at this time. His metal is too brutal for any mere mortal to withstand. And so, I shall give you a second chance. Return to the earth with my blessing, and stop Crichton, no matter what.
The dwarf. Will we get paid if we do? The god of metal laughs.
Of course you will.
The band has found their resolve. They come back to life again, just as Crichton is starting to leave.
You again? Must I send you to the other world once more?
The bard band picks themselves up, picks up their instruments, and begin to play. Perform rolls. 14, 10, 18, 17. Crichton is taken aback at the band's newfound power, and almost loses his footing. No words now, only metal. Crichton begins to play, rolls a 16. Pretty close after the buffs I gave them from the god's power-up. Crichton summons a small band of undead to play the drums, bass, etc. He does guitar and vocals. They play so well the buildings around them are blown away. Trees bend away from them and are uprooted by the force of their metal. The battle takes to the skies as Crichton mounts his horse and flies away. The band flies after him. Mid-air musical combat as the clouds grow dark and lightning crackles around them. Perform rolls again. One of them ties Crichton. Can't remember the exact number, but it was somewhere in the 50s. The song intensifies. Fire flies from Crichton's fingertips as he plays the guitar. The plants begin to wilt at the overflow of energy. Any people within 100 miles is turned to ash. The earth below them cracks and demons fly out and circle around Crichton. The heavens split and a host of Valkyries come to the band's aid, fighting off the demons as the two sides continue to play. One more perform roll. The human nat 20s. Crichton gets a 19. Hit a guitar solo. Slowly but surely, the humans begin to overpower Crichton.
Impossible. I am Crichton, the Lord of Metal.
End of guitar solo. The band plays together. Crichton's undead can't handle it and are destroyed. Crichton is disintegrated by the band's overwhelming power. As they finish the song, new life begins to grow where the plants died, and the disintegrated come back to life. The band was then taken in by the god of metal, to be his heralds. They essentially became demigods. They finally do get that 3 million platinum. They blow it all on booze and coke. Let me regale you with the tale of my party's beloved Ogi Honorary Dwarf. Our party consisted of good friends that had known each other, a reformed that guy, and Lucas the veteran. We had a pretty decent group, consisting of a dwarf warrior, human paladin, human warlock, tiefling rogue, me playing an half-elf ranger, and a human mage. We were in the relatively early stages of an epic campaign, and had been greeted by a sudden surge of slightly stronger enemies. What made these enemies slightly sturdier? Well, according to our DM, they had been gifted with what could only be described as slapdash metal riveted together by clumsy hands. This led us to a few leads in town that accumulated in hearing of an ogre that had taken up residence in an abandoned forge, and begun crafting rudimentary armor and weapons for the local minions. And of course, this led to our first quest. Kill the ogre, stop the attacks. After what felt like an hour of minion stomping and quest crushing, we found the forge, and killed a few of the outlying minions to prevent an unwelcome intrusion with the upcoming boss fight. We prepared ourselves. No cleric. Had to be especially careful with potion rations. Added some fun to the game. And had the tieflings sneak in and make sure we could sneak up without any trouble or annoying traps going off. She gave us the all clear, and we shuffled inside, praying our sneak checks held up. Inside the large forge, we followed the sound of clanging metal and deep grunts. Lucas took the lead, preparing to call in a few favors from Bahamut, with Raj, the dwarf, following closely behind him. When we turned the corner, the DM informed us we saw the large shape moving around an anvil and smelter, which we all knew meant the ogre. I asked to roll for initiative, to sneak a shot in and perhaps swing the battle to our favor. But Lucas had another plan. Lucas rolls for a diplomacy check, and takes the lead by speaking with the ogre. "Why are you making armor for evil?" The ogre stopped and turned around in surprise. The DM apparently was surprised we didn't flat out attack, and he asked us for a moment to pen something down. After his pen stopped, he cleared his throat.
Make armor here. Ogre no like make armor. So make armor for gobs they like.
The ogre then went on to tell us about how he discovered a book about crafting and decided to try making some for himself. Judging from the simplicity of the story, our DM hadn't expected us to be diplomatic, and just threw together something to explain why an ogre would want to spend his time with a hammer and anvil instead of hunting adventurers and eating goats. As the story dragged on, and we learned that the ogre had been kicked out for finding a book from another culture, we slowly kinda silently agreed to avoid killing him, since the image of this 9-foot-tall ogre tinkering away at an anvil to make a small medium-sized armor was too funny to pass up. When the ogre got to the part where he revealed he couldn't read the book, which was in a dwarven guide apparently, and was just following the pictures, Lucas decided to chime in. "Why don't you come with us? We have a dwarf who can translate the book for you, and you can learn to make better armor." The DM looked a little confused, but decided that the ogre would be allowed to be a friendly NPC in the party, if we all allowed it. And thus, we were joined by Ogie the Crafting Ogre. First thing we did once we went into the town was calm the mob that had appeared and attempted to kill Ogie. 5 diplomacy checks, a bluff check, and almost a third of my gold later, the town relents and lets us stay with him for the night. Ogie was really excited by this prospect and asked if he could visit the blacksmith, which Lucas had to explain was probably not a good idea since there wasn't a room in town big enough to hold him. We told Ogie to sleep in the stables.
Ogie understand. Ogie try not make humies mad.
That night, before ending the session, we joked about how silly this all was, taking in an ogre that didn't want to fight. We told some jokes, made a few jabs at how we thought the ogre was going to bite the dust, and called it a session. Next session, we woke up, paid for food until the next town, and left the inn, picking up Ogie from the stables on the way out. During the journey, Ogie kept bothering Raj, the dwarf, and asking about crafty smiths and clang-clang tools. Now, Raj is my dude bro, I've known for years, and even though this is obviously bothering him answering every question, he at least tries to be nice to the insistent pestering. In hindsight, this was probably our DM's attempt to leave Ogie behind so he could get back to the focus, but we managed to persist and keep him on with us to the next town. This time, deciding that we cannot afford to argue Ogie into town every time and spend half our income. Being a ranger, I offer to set up camp just outside the town's borders that we can keep Ogie and hunt some pelts for extra income. Raj offers to stay in camp with me and Ogie, with Lucas heading into town for the temple and the rogue. Wizard and Warlock will search for quests. As we set up the tents, I ask if it's possible to use Ogie as a deterrent against mobs in the local area. The DM allows a roll, and with a 17, says that Ogie's natural musk alerts the other monsters in the area to stay away. Raj stayed behind as I picked off some local wildlife for our dinner. While I hunted, Ogie asked Raj more questions about the book.
How Ogie make?
You can't. That needs a bar of iron and a forge.
Ogie make forge?
I don't think there's enough materials around here to do that. The wizard returned to our camp, letting the rogue and warlock threaten a local mayor for a better reward. The wizard proposed he make a temporary forge for Ogie using some spells and his fire magic. As for iron, the group has a bag of holding full of old weapons we had earned from defeating a minor demon. Ogie, who was ecstatic at the idea, asked if he could make armor for his dwarfy friend who read Ogie book. Not seeing the harm in such an idea, we agreed and Ogie set to work. In the morning, when we had awoken, Lucas, the rogue, and the warlock had also returned to camp. After we explained the plan for the newest quest, We gathered up our things and decided to wake Ogie. Turns out the poor bastard had spent half the night banging away at the old pile of scrap and made a chess piece, aptly titled by the DM as Ogie's Chess Piece O Protect, which was described as hodgepodge of metal sheets roughly slapped together. Raj, being such a dude bro, offered to wear it despite it having less protection points against slash. As the DM described Ogie's dumb smiling face, I felt a pang of guilt for making fun of him. Many quests continued on with Ogie, the crafting ogre, who had the neat ability to craft a piece of armor or weapon every 1d4 nights, and the DM would use 2d20s to determine the item he crafted. About 2 months of in-game time passed, and Ogie made us some slightly less than useful items, with no sign of improving. Sometimes we'd sell the things he made, other times we wore them for Ogie just to make him happy. By the 5th quest, I had an Ogie wristy gird gloves. When we finally located one of the main storyline quests, we also happened to pass by a temple of Mordarin, which had 24 forges surrounding it for followers to craft weapons for paladins. It was like trying to hold a 9-foot-tall child back from a toy store.
Ogie see crafty smiths. Maybe one teach Ogie make better armor.
Best not rush them, Ogie, Raj said, rolling for a diplomacy check to calm Ogie down.
But Ogie want make better armor for friends.
That hit us hard, and Lucas, being the de facto head, took the lead. Ogie, you can't enter the forges. They're only for Mordrin's craftsmen.
What mean?
Only dwarves are allowed in. Ogie seemed a little confused, before whimpering like a herd animal. We decided to drag him back to a tent outside town and let him calm down there. But not before he made a decision, looking at those forges.
Ogie will become dwarf.
The next few sessions were filled with a mix of heartache and heartwarming. Ogie tried extra hard to make better armor, and Raj now found a full-time hobby teaching Ogie to read dwarvish script. Every now and again, Ogie's efforts paid off, and his armor would be as good, if not slightly above what we were wearing. But it was still terribly built, and barely held together. Just the result of something so big not having the dexterity to make the fine-tuning of professionally crafted armor. Every now and then, Ogie would ask the group, specifically Raj, how he was doing.
Ogie dwarf now?
Not yet, I don't think. Maybe if you try harder.
Ogie can do.
Ogie seemed to become more determined every day, clanging away at his magic forge, combining what little scrap we found for him to throw together. He also began asking Lucas for help with contacting Mordarin to become a dwarf. We tried doing what we could in our spare time, but we also had to focus on the BBEG of the setting. Since we didn't want to derail the whole thing for our DM, who had been a pretty chill dude up to this point about the whole thing, we told Ogie that we had to fight a big bad guy, and that we needed to focus on saving the world. Ogie seemed to understand, and asked for a little bit of metal, promising to stop asking if we got it for him. We relented and turned over the last pieces of metal for him in exchange for him helping us on the quest. The DM told us that Ogie isn't designed for combat levels we were at by this point, but he could help a little if we were careful. Worst case scenario, we pull him back, Lucas performs lay on hands, and we're good to go. We slowly uncovered a conspiracy that ties to an ancient forgotten god, one who was worshipped as the god of destruction and undoing. Pretty sweet stuff as we kept getting closer and closer. The armor from Ogie stopped showing up, but it was okay, we found cheap armor. We made an effort to save the pieces that Ogie had crafted for us, out of loyalty to our curious big crafty smith friend. Ogie never seemed to ask for metal anymore, but we heard him clanging away every night before we would fall asleep. The lessons continued, with Raj teaching Ogie more and more about Mordarin, but he couldn't answer the most spiritual of them, only being a warrior who happened to be a dwarf. For the questions about the god's methods, Lucas was there to answer his questions.
How Ogi talk to Mordrin?
You pray and ask for guidance.
Mordrin show Ogi how make better armor?
If he sees fit to, he shall guide you.
How Ogi know?
You won't, but you have to believe.
Ogi believe.
After a while, Ogi began splitting the time between speaking with Lucas about Mordrin, which he thought was the quickest way to becoming a dwarf, and practicing his rudimentary dwarvish, which he used to read his first book. He faded more and more into our group's project, a background character. We still cared for him, but we just couldn't afford to babysit him as we leveled up. He also insisted on having Lucas ask Mordrin if he was a dwarf yet.
Mordrin make Ogi dwarf now?
That is not my place to tell, Ogi.
Ogi pray, but Mordrin not talking. Did Ogi do it wrong?
It is not my place to tell, but I believe the gods work in mysterious ways.
Ogi understand. Make better armor soon for friends.
As we cleared out more and more dungeons, we started to realize that we made a mistake dragging Ogi along. He just couldn't keep up to our leveling, and he couldn't get any useful perks. He started to become a hassle. By the time we were at the final stretch of the quest, facing the ancient cult summoning the god, we had a silent agreement to leave Ogi behind, lest he get hurt. We executed the play perfectly. Last town before the invasion, we told Ogi to stay with the magic forge and practice alone for a few days, and that we were going to get him more metal to work with. Of course, the big lug agreed, and after casting a spell to keep the fires going for a week, we set out, Ogi clanging away happily. We didn't look back, but you can be damn sure we didn't leave with a smile. 2 hours into the dungeon, and we knew we had messed up. First off, we failed one too many sneak and bluffs, and that meant the cultists had finished their mission in summoning the god of undoing. He was essentially an Orcus, without the secrecy. Pragmatic as hell, he immediately begins to cast a bunch of seals and spells that trap us in the room, and then debuffs our armors to the point it's unraveling back into scraps. Our warlock was protecting our wizard with a low-level demon. Our rogue was stealthily trying to pickpocket the dead cultist for anything that might help. Raj and Lucas led the attack, and I was firing a volley every chance I got, rolling for anything that might break his ungodly armor. We were using everything, and had run out of potions. Lucas had no more lay on hands available, thanks to a dozen cultists cutting off his prayers to Bahamut. It was only now that we regretted not having a cleric. The god approached Lucas and Raj, without a hint of monologue, proceeded to wreck their shit. He breaks Raj's armor, shatters the divine shields Lucas was using, and then readies his next round of spells. And then, the DM rolled for initiative. From behind me, a large metal sphere flew out and thumped the god. Not enough to hurt him, but it was high enough roll to disrupt his spell.
Ogi done crafting.
From behind us, standing in the large doorway, stood an ogre, clad in a terribly mismatched set of armor, embolized with a hammer of Mordrin on its chest piece. In his right hand, an enormous hammer the size of a stone column, and made of the same dented metal. Suddenly, all the Knights of Clanging made sense. Ogi wanted to help. We just thought he was a burden. Ogi charged forward, rolling a 17 on his first roll, and with the god suffering from stupefaction because of his entrance, landed his first hit. It was the most damaging hit we had done to the god, and it had been dealt by an ogre that was wearing what looked like the rejected art and crafts project of a preschooler. We sat there for a moment in stunned silence, as the DM described the armor and hammer he carried, calling it a crude mimicry of the holy hammers and suits of armor worn by paladins of Mordrin.
You no hurt. Ogi's friends. No more.
3 hits, each one doing a little less than last, but still doing something. During this affair, the rogue finally hit a natural 20, and found the cultist leader's emergency regens to shut the whole spell down on his corpse. She rolled for the toss to Lucas, who had enough armor to take another hit if he needed to get close. Ogi roared and attempted to grapple, using his natural modifiers to hold him. The god of destruction. For a brief moment.
Ogi Paladin now too. Help Mordred. Help Lucas. Like real dwarf.
We felt a pang of guilt. We had left this guy behind so he couldn't bother us with his quest to becoming a dwarf. But here he was, wearing that stupid smile, wearing that stupid armor, and pulling that stupid move. Lucas sighed heavily. We all rolled for our respective abilities. There was a brief moment where we thought we had this thing down, until Lucas and our warlock stopped and realized the flaw in the plan. Ogi still isn't high level. With that, our turn ended, and the DM rolled for the god's attack versus Ogi's grapple. I wish I could say Ogi had a natural 20. I wish I could say that his modifier gave him just enough to hold the god down. But I can't. The god rolled 14. Ogi rolled 5. The DM then informed us that not only did the god break the grapple, but now had stunned Ogi long enough to cast a spell of destruction, point blank, at Ogi's chest. As I said before, very rarely did Ogi craft armor that matched the level stats of armor we bought in town. He was wearing armor that was almost 2 levels below his current level, and his current level was lower than any of us. Ogi collapsed in a heap, and the god turned to face us. For those that don't know, our warlock was once that guy. He had a major falling out with the DM and Lucas, and reformed himself. He never got along with Lucas, but he was willing to not be a jerk as long as Lucas didn't call him out on stuff again. This was the only time I saw our warlock look across the table and ask Lucas for help. I need a favor, and I need it now. Lucas moved to cover the warlock, who charged forward with a series of demons in tow. Our warlock may have been a jerk, a tad, but he was a jerk with a good amount of demons on call for favors. He called every single one of them in. The DM, knowing what this meant to us, didn't bother to ask our roles. Every demon snuck in a hit, and with a dwarf at his heels, a wizard freezing his balls, and a ranger firing arrows into every square inch of flesh exposed on his hide. It was no wonder the god never saw our rogue behind him, with a sealing amulet and scroll of desolation from the cultist leader. Before the god even returned to the astral plane, we rushed to Ogi, who was managing to hang on by the merest dread of life possible. Lay on hands was next to useless. With no potions, we all knew that we were watching Ogi die. And even after we had killed a god, conquered dungeons, and leveled evil kingdoms, we couldn't save our friend.
Ogi, sorry, he got in the way.
You didn't. You did great.
Ogi, sorry. He not make good armor like dwarf.
We love your armor, big guy. Don't think like that. I'd never seen Lucas try so hard to call in a favor from Bahamut, a role so desperately for a miracle. Even the warlock was searching his sheets for a demon who might help without too hefty a price. But to no avail.
Ogi know why Mordred no talk to Ogi. Ogi's hands too big and clumsy. So Ogi not make small armor nice and pretty.
It's fine, Ogi. Just hang on. We're gonna save you.
Ogi knew he not good crafty smith when he saw dwarf temple. crafty smiths look at him funny. But Ogie try anyways.
I'm a touchy-feely guy, and I know Ogie was a figment of our imagination, but when you see Lucas, a veteran who lost his leg to a bomb before he was 25, holding back tears, you know it wasn't just me being blubbery when I say that we were tearing up.
Ogie, not good crafty smith with armor and weapon, but Ogie good crafty smith at something. Ogie can make good story.
At this point, our rogue hid behind her screen, and the warlock just stared down at his feet, having stopped searching for his demons to deal with.
Ogie think dwarves make good armor and stories, which is why Ogie wanted to be dwarf. But Ogie understand he not dwarf, and he not be dwarf ever.
Ogie's breathing began to slow, and Raj grabbed his hand, holding it as best he could. You could be a dwarf, Ogie. You could be the best dwarf in the land. Ogie closed his eyes and smiled.
Ogie like that. He go sleep now.
And like that, our party lost Ogie, a crafty smith. And we all think a little something died with him inside us all. We looted the dungeon, killed the remaining cultist, made our way back to the nearest village, one that happened to have a temple and a forge for followers of Mordrin. When we entered the town, we all took notice that the forges were louder than ever. Half the town seemed to be gathered around the temple. Naturally curious, we moved closer. At first, we were rolling to push through, until Lucas used a favor from Bahamut to project a holy shout and clear the path. We got closer and closer to the entrance. We saw more and more dwarves, some wearing the emblem of Mordrin, others in the attire of his sacred blacksmiths. As we reached the entrance, knowing we weren't allowed in, we asked a priest if he could tell us what the fuss was. The priest asked us if we had been involved with the destruction of a god of undoing. Of course we were, so he led us inside. Deep inside the mountain, past the pillars, past the gorgeously carved hallways and stone arches, and into the deepest parts of the forge's sanctums. We witnessed dozens of dwarves mill around, throwing around orders and commands in ancient dwarvish. The priest pointed out what had been causing the ruckus. We received divine word that Mordrin, the creator, has ordered a statue to be erected in honor of the falling of the god. The dwarves tugged out a large metal and marble statue from a crafting vault, and the appointment of a new apprentice to his mighty forges in the halls of his domain. There, crafted by the finest dwarves artisan, was an enormous 30-foot tall statue of Ogie, complete with golden hammer, silver book of dwarven crafting, and a beard befitting a dwarf. Ogie Good Crafter, honorary dwarf of Mordrin, and crafty smith of the forge. That was the first time I cried playing D&D. After a year of sessions in D&D, I elected to have my hero, the half-elven ranger, retire into godhood as a deity of honorable hunting. Upon ascension, I asked for a favor, as great as my weapons were in the mortal realms. The fact was that I needed something more suited for godly duties, so they needed to be reworked. And I knew exactly who I wanted to remake them. Mordrin welcomed me into his forges, obviously happy to have his apprentices practice with their skills in crafting weapons fit for gods. When I asked if it would be possible to have someone specific work on it, he knew exactly who I wanted. and he led me to a grand hall where dozens of dwarves were gathered around a large figure, clanging away, happily at an anvil. There, wearing his iconic slapdash armor over an enormously enlarged dwarf robe, was Ogi, wearing the biggest, dumbest smile you could ever imagine. He looked up, smiled, picked me up, laughing and hugging as I tried not to cry. When he finally put me down, I showed him what I wanted to show him ever since he left our group. I held up my hands and showed him what I was wearing for celestial armor. There, on my hands were Ogi's wristy gird gloves, battered from years of use and adventures, and raised to the level of a god's armor. And that, TG, is the story of Ogi, the honorary dwarf, and a crafty smith of the forge.